Yo, I sat down at a good time, but also just like 3 seconds too late. I could have been way on top of that and stopped right before the next track. Hi, everyone. Nice. How are we all doing? It's good to see you guys. Are you looking forward to some SCP stuff tonight? Because I am. I'm very excited. By the way, I decided that this shirt is so cute that I needed to make one for myself. So I've been working on it outside of stream, and it works up way faster than I just can't believe how long we've been working on this shirt. I cannot believe how long. The coffin backpack has the body finished, but is in timeout. Yeah, fair enough. Sometimes you just need a break from your project, hey? Excited to hear the number of the ways the world can end? Hell yeah. All right, here we go, y'all. I don't have any like super important things to really talk about today, so I think we can just get straight to it. Is there anything anybody wants to talk about? I don't have anything that I necessarily need to talk about. The crows had a meeting just outside of my backyard today. I don't know whether they were grieving or whether they were talking about food or if they were like choosing a new spot to roost or thank you everyone. We are SCPing tonight. We are. We're going to listen to NightMind's reading of SCPs. You're trying press-ons again and making tacos? Yum. Tacos are good too. No, I'm just kidding. That's disgusting. I'm so sorry. That was really gross. I forgot a lighter, which is bad, but I don't need to smoke nearly as much as I do. So we're going to just leave that for now. If I get super desperate, I have a dead lighter here that I definitely would be able to milk a tiny flame out of. It will just be ridiculous. Anyway, it looks like we've got about 30 people here. If I could just get 3 readies in chat, that would make me very happy, and we could get to work on that. And we could get right to work on that. Give me 1 second. I'm going to take a quick drink of water. Ooh. Hell yeah. All right. Fuck. I don't know how this got moved so drastically. Ow. Fudge me, dude. I have a corn and it hurts. Hello, Christian Schreiner. Also, Sholin Monkey, thank you so much for the 35 bits. That's so nice. Rory says, hi, Rory. Good kitty. All right.
Sholin Monkey cheered. I saw my first porn film last week. I couldn't believe how young I looked.
Man, that's a dangerous joke in a lot of ways. Oh, man. Okay, all right. What's this, Dee Dee? Hello, Christian Schreiner. Hello, Clara. How's everyone? I did a really bad job of... Oh, I will hydrate in just a moment. I thought that I had everything ready. I don't. I'm the worst. But luckily I don't need my keyboard, so we'll be okay. Real quick praise to NightMind for knowing how to make a playlist. All right, all my joke no higher than NC-17. You can tell X-rated jokes in here. That's a-okay. Okay, here we go. Everybody. Everybody. Everywhere. Everybody. Thank you, NightMind. scared of hosting a show that I've never been able to watch live, and I've only ever watched one all the way through. I don't know how to host that show. I'm so sorry.
All right, that should be the last of the failsafes.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Hello? I swear, if we've come all this way only for the audio to fail at the last minute, I'm going to be furious. Let me just... Okay, are we good? Alright, that's it. We're good then. Look, I hate to throw out all the grace in a standard introduction, but we're not safe here. I've made a very limited window of time for us to do this, and once it runs out, we're in jeopardy. You've been asking for a look inside the Foundation for ages, and I found a way to hook us up to an internal computer using one of the security drones. But if we aren't careful, they'll know something's up. We'll be taken offline, and then they'll try to track my location. Can't let that happen. They've wanted to get their hands on me for years, and I don't feel like trying to save as much equipment as I can before a containment squad comes and tears the whole building down.
His voice sounds so nice,
to give us just enough time to explore
He
a few entries before the system is
definitely
aware of a
forcing it a
breach.
little, but
No worries about waking up anything or
can't be
posing a
mad.
containment threat
It
to any
sounds
monsters
really
on
nice.
site. This is an isolated wing with no
Ask
cells, and
Josiah
the
to
records
host
we'll
the
be looking at
questions,
don't
or I can
concern
host the
anything in
questions
this
week.
building.
We
Most
can
of
use
them
your
can't even be
formats.
found on
Okay,
any
that would
site
make
under
me very
Foundation
happy.
control.
Thank you.
You see, there are some
you.
anomalies in this world that can't be fully secured, contained, or protected. Tonight, we'll be examining SCP's most wanted, the uncontained and highly dangerous monsters among us. Most of the things in here want to break out. Tonight, we're breaking in. Now stand by. I'm going to open the vault door.
I'm really looking forward to it. It's tomorrow, right? Hi, Black Rose. Welcome. Everybody make sure that Black Rose feels welcome. Clara, post that in the Discord. Post that in the Discord, and I do look at those, you know. I definitely do. I message each and every one of them.
We're connected. Looking pretty good so far, so we can relax just a bit, but we still need to watch out. We have just enough time to pull 9 files from the most wanted area, ranging in threat level according to difficulty of human avoidance. Code White represents a kind of threat that can be avoided pretty easily, as long as you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, not shocked by that question. I can tell that he's like
a situation that's much harder to
a little
avoid,
bit,
but if you keep your senses with you and have strong willpower, you might make
Black
it through
Rose,
any
if you
encounters.
hit exclamation
Code Red
pattern
is what the Foundation
in
really
chat,
doesn't want anyone
it'll
knowing
tell
about.
ya.
Threats to humanity that are very difficult or currently
It'll
impossible
show
to
you.
predict,
There will be a
prevent,
link to
and
the
take
finished
down.
project and to
As
the
we
pattern.
explore, remember that we
it's a
can't
free
get certain bits of
pattern.
information. Anything under major lockdown by the Foundation, such as names, locations, and identifying characteristics, will be replaced with a note that it's been redacted. Euclid classes refer to those which may pose a deadly threat. Keter classes either guarantee it or can harm serious numbers of people and humanity at large. Our first entry is item number 1155, Predatory Street Art. Object class, Keter. SCP
Y'all should be posting these in the
1155
Discord. I'm
manifests
never
as a
going to
work of
remember
street
to
art
look
or
at these after
graffiti depicting
stream.
the form of a humanoid creature with sinewy forelimbs,
I know you're not a
claw-like
troll.
hands,
Oh,
and
I
the
hope
head
you
and
don't think
feathers
that I
of an
thought
owl.
ill of you.
The depicted pose is variable, but tends towards a predatory stance with eyes that appear to track the viewer. Anyone viewing this image directly will experience a compulsion to investigate further.
7.
Victims describe a nervous fascination and a desire to move closer. This can be resisted with effort, especially if the subject is aware of SCP-1155's anomalous properties. If a subject approaches within 6 feet and is not in the line of sight of another person, they will be subjected to a violent attack, suffering
And then just
severe
in
lacerations,
parentheses,
dismemberment of
put creepy
extremities,
crochet.
whole or partial removal of soft body parts, and penetrating head trauma consistent with those that would be inflicted by a large beak and/or talons. The attack generally takes about 6 seconds to conclude, upon which both SCP-1155 and the victim will vanish, and 1155 will reappear elsewhere in the usual manner of a relocation event within 7 days.
Appreciate it.
Attacks can be halted before this event by re-establishing line of sight to the victim, but this is not recommended. See record of incident 1155A.
I don't know why this
Attempts
is
to track where the
curling.
victims are taken by equipping test subjects with GPS locators have failed. Based on tested interruptions performed at predefined
I guess my
intervals,
attention
the
is
attack follows
little
a defined
inconsistent.
pattern.
Maybe I should.
The victim will first be restrained, and the eyes and tongue will be removed, rapidly followed by the amputation of the hands and feet.
Hi,
The
Sal.
victim will then be disemboweled, and the intestines and
Oh, hi,
stomach
Kels.
removed. Death usually follows due to shock or rapid blood loss, but only if the attack is interrupted by visual contact. The fate of victims who disappear along with SCP-1155 at the conclusion of the attack is unknown. Incident 1155-A reads as follows. 2 surviving Class D personnel used for attack interruption tests were given medical treatment and kept alive in the aftermath of the event. Both were incoherent and could not adequately communicate what had happened to them, though D-89-786, whose eyes had been taken during the attack, claimed to still be able to see, and he provided a description of a larder containing bodies of previous victims of SCP-1155 along with the entity itself. D-89-786 escaped from on-site quarters during a containment breach by an unassociated SCP and was pursued by local law enforcement, who had been told that he was a severely disturbed patient from a local mental hospital. Responding officers reported they saw the suspect walking into an alleyway, but before they could apprehend, a scream was heard, and when they rounded the corner, it was found that D-89-786 had disappeared. The alleyway was a dead end with no visible exits. D-89-789, with eyes, tongue, hands, and feet removed before the attack was halted, had been transferred to a secure site. A period of rapid relocating was noted in SCP-1155, during which it was observed in several public places with a posture that suggested hunting and tracking behavior.
I'm the worst.
1155
Good night,
appeared
Reaper.
for
Have a good
several
one.
hours high up on the side of a building in full view of many witnesses,
Hello,
who
Crystal Space
fortunately
Eyes.
could not
How
access
are
it.
you?
In view of the difficulties of containment, Site Command made the decision to bring D-89-789 back into the city. 1155 was observed to appear several times on walls, advertisement boards, and bridges along the transport vehicle's path. 789 was observed to become increasingly agitated and hysterical during the process. D-89-789 was transferred to a remote location on the edge of city limits, placed in front of SCP-1155, and visual contact was broken. 1155 and D-789 disappeared, and 1155 resumed previous pattern of manageable relocation behavior. The SCP Foundation has a few areas of the affected city cordoned off and made to look abandoned so they can keep tabs on 1155, but constant relocation by the Owl makes permanent containment impossible. Mobile Task Force PI-1 are in charge of finding new areas of residence by 1155 as quickly as it relocates. Surveillance and general population deterrents are set up at the new locations, and the process repeats as soon as the Owl moves again. A permanent way to close it off or dispose of 1155 is still being investigated. Any form of damage done to the surface it resides on just forces it to immediately relocate. Be careful walking around in your local city.
This is a cool
that
SCP.
graffiti on the wall may be much more dangerous than
I
a
feel
few
like this would be
layers
a
of
fun
paint.
tattoo.
Speaking of
Like,
the city, how
I'm
do
not
you normally
crazy
get around
about
in yours?
the art. It's
I do
like
hope
it's
you're
obviously
walking,
really
taking
good.
a bike or have your own car,
But like,
because our
I
next
feel like it
entry
would
makes
not
public
make that
transportation
great of a
lot
tattoo,
more
but like
difficult.
the meaning behind it as a tattoo would be fucking
is classified as a
legit.
Keter object, and for good reason. It's a species of arthropod resembling various makes, models, and brandings of public transport vehicles, typically buses.
Yeah, I fully
A
fucking get
newborn
that, Moth.
specimen of
I totally get that.
SCP-2086 can be expected to grow to full size within 1 week. On average,
what we
SCP-2086 specimens live 12 to 15 days, with females
You have a
producing
good
up to
time.
20 offspring after reaching reproduction age at approximately 8 days. Mature bodies of SCP-2086 do not feed, instead living off of nutrients consumed as juveniles. However, only mature 2086 instances display foraging behaviors. When foraging, SCP-2086 are almost indistinguishable from standard automobiles, although closer examination does reveal the steel, wood, plastic, and glass to be a specialized form of chitin. Vital organs such as the
knows
heart,
how to
brain,
say
and stomach are
chitin
stored beneath the
properly.
flooring of SCP-2086's inner chamber. A human body, preserved in a shellac-like substance, typically serves as the decoy driver of wild 2086 entities. Fibrous appendages protrude into the body. SCP-2086 instances use these fibers to manipulate the body, providing a more lifelike appearance. 2086 can unravel their roofs into wings that are capable of lifting the entire organism in flight, which is their standard method of locomotion when not foraging.
He totally is.
In addition, the wheels can unravel into long, gray or black legs while the headlights appear to serve as bioluminescent optical organs. The appendages of SCP-2086 instances are abnormally apt at fine
Autobots?
manipulation when compared to other species of arthropod. Specimens have been observed building crude shelters with the materials located at their nesting grounds. 2086 typically nest in abandoned junk and scrapyards. juveniles in the wild have been observed removing bus stop signposts and relocating them, typically in a route that leads back to the local colony. Accidental civilian observation of 2086 engaging in this activity is minimized due to the significantly smaller size of juvenile specimens.
Like, oh, if I move the
2086 will drive
signs,
along the route laid by juveniles, picking up human
then
passengers.
clearly the route will change.
Once a significant number of humans board the body of 2086, the
You mean
organism releases a
Decepticons.
substance similar to chloroform to incapacitate its prey. Upon returning to the colony, juveniles will enter the mature's internal chamber. Each passenger is then forcefully
Victoria
removed from the
V.
mature
How are
body by a
you?
juvenile. 2086 will proceed to force the human through a location under their hood, linking to the placement of the steering wheel and driver's seat. Once consumed, hair-like appendages in the driver's seat will pierce the trapped human's body. These appendages serve as feeding tubes, draining blood from the prey. Once the prey has been drained of blood, the feeding tubes will begin to secrete a saline solution into the body. The internal compartment will then begin to fill with a shellac-like substance, preserving it eternally. I was once told that
That's
public buses can give you
nutty.
diseases and put you out of commission for a while. Now I know that a public bus can take you out completely. If you step on board SCP-2086, it'll be the last ride you ever take. Our final code white entry is a bit harder to avoid than buses that kidnap and eat people, but only if you're pretty social online. SCP-1715 is a Euclid class entity known as the Online Friend, and they're anything but friendly. SCP-1715 is an anomalous entity that sporadically joins and integrates itself into small online communities such as message boards and wiki databases. 1715 uses a different name on each website it joins.
Watching
However,
the way
every
that
recorded
MC Chris
username
interacts
chosen
with
by
his
the
fans
entity
makes
has
me
either
not
included
at
a
all
redacted word or been
interested in
thematically
supporting
linked to a
him, though.
redacted activity.
I feel like he's kind of
All
a dick.
efforts to trace
I
1715's
don't know
source
him in
have
real life,
failed.
so I can't
It is
know
currently
that,
unknown
but
whether
I don't like the way he talks to the
SCP-1715 is a
people
corporeal
that
entity
support
accessing the
him.
internet from a physical location, or an incorporeal phenomenon that exists only on the internet itself. 1715 describes itself differently in each manifestation, but always claims to be between 15 and 30 years of age. The anomaly typically targets small but growing web communities that are centered around video games, television programs, musical groups, and similar interests. SCP-1715 has proven capable of manifesting on as many as 9 sites at once. It is currently unknown if this is the extent of its limitations or merely the highest number of cases observed by the Foundation. For the most part, 1715 uses proper
That's
grammar,
pretty fun,
spelling,
though.
and punctuation with only occasional errors, and displays a high level of knowledge surrounding the topic of the website it participates in. Other
Wow,
members of the online
cosplay?
communities
That's very
frequented by
fun.
SCP-1715 generally consider it to be affable, polite, enthusiastic, and helpful. Because of its attractive personality and active level of participation, 1715 will often become a highly respected user on websites within a relatively short amount of time. On a number of occasions, the anomaly has been promoted to positions of authority by site administrators. SCP-1715 begins to show anomalous properties once it has established itself as a presence on an online community, usually within 8 weeks of its initial join date. At that time, 1715 will send a number of private messages to other site members, beginning with other popular users. These messages generally begin with a declaration of friendship,
need to
followed
get
by
some
fabricated
blocking
details
pads.
regarding
I'm just, like,
1715's
looking at how
personal life,
awful
and end with a request for the
the edges
recipient's
of
personal information.
This strap
If
is.
a user ignores the
and it's
message or responds without
upsetting to
providing any
me
factual
how
personal
gross
details,
that,
no
like,
anomalous
especially
effects
look
will
at
take
that
place.
right there. That's
If the user provides
egregious.
SCP-1715 with factual personal
there's another one
information,
right
the
here,
user
and then
and their
this one is
account will
not
become
gonna be much
instances of
better.
SCP-1715-1 and -2 respectively. Within 2 weeks of responding to 1715's message, instances of 1715-1 will be injured in a violent incident, homicides, and suicides. Although these events usually result in immediate death, there have been cases of 1715-1 being rendered comatose, brain dead, or similarly incapacitated. Investigations performed by local law enforcement units and Foundation agents have determined all deaths to be apparently non-anomalous in nature and explainable by evidence. In one case, Foundation investigators found evidence that
Listening
an
to
individual had
SCPs,
started planning his
Chester.
murder several years before the 1715-1 victim had ever joined a message board. It is currently unknown if 1715 is somehow influencing these events, or if it actively seeks
are
out
ya?
individuals it knows will die. After SCP-1715-1 is deceased or otherwise incapacitated, the corresponding website account, known as 1715-2, will remain active in its respective online communities, posting content that is consistent with its former owner's personality and writing style. Occurrences of 1715-2 possess the same memories as their counterparts up until the time of their death, but deny that they are, in fact, dead, often accusing the inquiring party of being a troll. 1715-2 will discuss the same topics as their living counterparts, with the exception that they will occasionally post messages that could be interpreted as references to their death. Accounts for 1715-2 remain active as prolific members until such time that 1715 announces its own departure from the website. Once this takes place, all instances of 1715-2 will reply to the announcement with various
Please
well-wishes
post a
and
link
goodbyes before immediately ceasing
Bardic
all
Muse.
anomalous activity. Beyond their apparently symbiotic
If there's
connection to
like
SCP-1715,
picture and
there does
written
not appear to be a
instructions,
limit
that's
to the amount of
much
time
better for me than a
1715-2
video,
can remain on site.
so that I
One
can
group
look at it
remained
right
active
now.
for 11 years,
Also,
analyzing and
thank you
discussing
for the
episodes of Buffy the
suggestion.
Vampire
I
Slayer
am
on a daily
all
basis until the site
ears
was
for
eventually shut
ways
down by
to do better
Foundation
at
personnel.
crochet. I want to make
You
the
may want to
best
take a look at
project.
some
I
of
want
your own
my
circles
projects to
online
be
now that you've been made
perfect.
aware of SCP-1715. It's nice to have internet friends, but you certainly wouldn't want them to get too involved. Chalk this up to another reason to avoid sharing personal details online. Here's an entry that doesn't care for your personal details. They're after something much more powerful than your name. The first of our Code Blue entries, SCP-1076, Euclid Class, known as the Only Child. SCP-1076 refers to a species that always appears as a child between the ages of 3 and 5 with an unwashed appearance and long matted hair, barefoot and dressed in ragged clothing. Cursory physical examination reveals signs of moderate to severe malnutrition and bruising and scarring consistent with physical abuse. Specimens of both sexes have been encountered and normally appear to be of the majority ethnicity of their place of discovery. Specimens seem to comprehend simple statements but have not displayed any signs of verbal ability.
Or scleral
Vocalizations
children,
are limited to simple
or
grunts,
whatever you want to
sighs,
call them.
and
Did
when
they all,
disturbed, loud shrieking and sobbing. Specimens are reluctant to meet the gaze of any
Did they
individual
start out
and
as an
tend to look
SCP?
downward in the absence of outside stimulus. They will respond to simple questions by nodding in the affirmative or negative. Initial encounters with SCP-1076 occur when a parent discovers the child in a state of apparent distress. These incidents occur in isolation. There are no known cases with any third-party witnesses. Subjects report an overwhelming feeling of pity for the specimen and, in every recorded case, take it into their home. Once inside a home, 1076 begins to monopolize the attention of the parents to the exclusion of their own children. Children already present in the home begin to show signs of neglect and malnutrition and become depressed, sullen, and withdrawn.
Dark.
Behavioral problems such as truancy and running away become frequent, which may attract the attention of school authorities or social welfare agents. Upon investigating, the authorities become obsessed with the welfare of 1076 as well and subsequently ignore the children. An infestation typically ends in the death of the parents and other caretakers as they neglect their own well-being in order to attend to 1076.
Good to know.
In the few cases where the Foundation
I
was
think
able
that I
to
learned
contain
about
an
them at
infestation before
relatively
this
the same
occurrence, subjects who
time.
were separated from the specimen became violent or nearly catatonic, and repeatedly demanded to be reunited with their baby. If two specimens of SCP-1076 meet, they will attack each other with great force, using teeth and fingernails until one or both are dead. Any personnel witnessing such an attack should be treated for possible psychological trauma. The human instinct to help children in trouble is very strong. The sight of a child in the condition SCP-1076 presents would result in immediate attention by concerned adults.
Using kids
However,
for shit.
because of the effects of 1076 within a person's home, it may very well be that its
So
anomalous
fucked up.
properties work when someone first encounters it as well. The inability by human nature to resist a child in distress can be considered as strong as the power of our next entry in a different way.
Oh.
The fear of authority.
Okay, really quick,
Whereas the only
everybody. I'm
child
so
is an
sorry.
entity
We're gonna
innocent
take a
people
quick break.
discover.
We're gonna do it
SCP
early, which means the pre-rolls will be off longer. But I have to pee really bad. I forgot a lighter, all that good stuff. And also I'm gonna just go eat 2 forkfuls of peanut butter because I'm very hungry. So that's gonna happen. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Howdy, sorry. How's everyone? 1 minute. NB Trash, thank you for looking out for me. Appreciate ya. Sorry about this napkin. We are still doing the ballerina top. I don't know when the last time you were in was, but we are still working on the ballerina top. We are, I think, nearing the completion of this gray part. I think we just have this, excuse me, this strap to do, and then 2 back straps. And then I think we move on to the like white lacy part. I'm really excited about it. I'm hanging in there, Envy. How are you? Full on looking at this really quick before I move on, but I will start playing the SCP for you guys if I could just get 4 readies in chat. Thank you so much, Bardic Muse. Hi, Pondwater. Also, hi, Sperry. Hello, Trissy. Welcome. Everybody make sure that Trissy feels welcome. SCP is a fake wiki of cryptids that's spoken about as if it was real and run by an a government organization. Like there are special agents that work for the SCP that secure, contain, protect SCP, all the monsters. Crowdsourced horror fiction, absolutely. Ooh, fun, Envy. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start it, and I'm going to look at this tutorial super quick.
973 is the kind that finds you.
Straps.
Smokey is a highly dangerous Euclid-class entity composed of 2 bodies. SCP-973-1 is a police cruiser resembling those used by state troopers in the early 1970s. The vehicle appears to be in an advanced state of disrepair. Eyewitness accounts have consistently mentioned large dents in the doors and hood, a heavily cracked windshield, heavy rusting, and a loose rear bumper secured with duct tape. 973-2 is reported as a Caucasian male in his late 40s, wearing a state trooper uniform dating from the same time period as the vehicle. Subject is described as balding, slightly overweight, and having a handlebar mustache. SCP-973 will manifest at night when another vehicle enters a redacted territory, and is believed to be triggered by the target vehicle accelerating over a certain speed. This limit varies, with the average being in the area of 55 miles per hour, but it can range anywhere between 35 and 70. No predictable pattern or connection between differing limits has been found as of yet. Yeah, I definitely want to try this. I'm going to at least do it on this one. SCP-973 will appear approximately 0.4 kilometers behind the target vehicle and will chase them down at a high speed with the siren and flashes on.
Then we'll go back and
This is accompanied by a looping message played on the target's radio consisting of
Thank
the word
you so much
run.
For this, Bardic Muse.
In many cases, the target will flee with 973 in pursuit and will be overtaken in 1 to 6 minutes. At this point,
data expunged. Clearance level insufficient.
The remains of 34 individuals and 19 vehicles have been found within 6.4 kilometers of the affected roadway. The range of damage done to bodies includes evisceration.
Data expunged. Clearance level insufficient.
In 3 cases where the body had been damaged by the impact to the point that visual identification was impossible. 5 survivors are within Foundation custody, all suffering from various degrees of mental trauma. The recovered vehicles showcase heavy impact damage, both environmental and inflicted, and severe burn damage to the interior. Addendum 3. SCP-973's area of effect seems to be expanding,
I really need
as
a
does
frog
the window of time that
really
manifestations
bad.
occur. Security protocols have been adapted to this event. 973's method of operation suggests that there's very little that can be done to avoid it, but we do have survivors, and records of its history does give us two options. Don't go over 35 miles per hour in areas where state troopers hide, and if you do see 973 appear behind you, put the pedal to the floor and hold on to the wheel. Your life depends on it. Our final, Code Blue, would be nearly unavoidable if it weren't for its rate of exposure and the ability to perceive things that may be wrong with other people. The efforts of the Foundation to eliminate the threat has also given the general population a much higher chance of survival. The slow burn sloth may seem innocent at first, but it's been marked as a Keter class for a reason.
Thank you.
SCP
I will take the rat. I will take
is
it.
any medium which contains SCP-2774-A. 2774-A is a mimetic image of an unknown humanoid entity, presumably wearing a sloth costume. Effects of viewing 2774-A set in between 40 to 100 hours after exposure. Those affected will begin to lose the ability to use cognitive functions or make higher-level decisions, except for a period lasting around 150 seconds every 24 hours. This period occurs randomly. 2774-A manifests itself in various forms of media, including movies, television, magazines, and in some cases, personally recorded videos or pictures. The sloth is typically located in the background of whatever media it appears in. To date, there have been no instances of SCP-2774 on the internet.
Shit.
A single incident in northern Canada where 2774-A appeared on live local television resulted in the relocation of over 4,000 people to Site-116. The image has been found to only retain anomalous properties if it contains hues of red or green. Therefore, those with forms of color blindness are not affected by SCP-2774. The sloth is believed to possess mimetic properties that are enhanced based on the number of people it affects. Manifestations of 2774-A appear to become more common as the number of living victims increases. After the implementation of Protocol XP9, reports of manifestation dropped significantly. Tests show that, including the colorblind, SCP-2774 now does not affect the majority of people who view it. It is estimated that under 40% of those exposed to 2774 are actually affected. This percentage is also directly influenced by the number of living victims. When subject to SCP-2774-A's effect, victims appear to move normally based on muscle memory, albeit with slowed reaction times. They are very passive and compliant with personnel, willing to answer basic questions and follow commands, though they display a lack of emotion.
I'm so upset right now.
While they appear conscious, victims cannot control their actions in any way. Upon entering their 150 seconds of lucidity, victims are often highly agitated and fearful and may act irrationally. Those affected report complete memory of time spent without cognitive function, but no ability to comprehend their actions or affect them in any way. In numerous instances, those affected by SCP-2774 report observing 2774-A while their body is acting autonomously. Perception of reality appears to be lost during that time. Subjects are to be considered unstable when conscious and are to be approached with care. Those who have been settled at Site-116 have displayed an affinity to SCP-2774-A. Art, literature, and effigies of 2774-A can commonly be found hoarded in the corners of subjects' rooms. All objects are presumed to have been created while unconscious. These objects are commonly traded between subjects during free hours. Any such items are to be removed and incinerated, and their creators terminated, along with any subjects seen emulating the sloth. Dr. Clara Chung conducted interviews with subjects affected by SCP-2774 to gain insight into its effects. The first interview with Subject 866, David, took place on June 11, 2010.
I'm so sorry.
Dr. Chung opened by asking what Subject 866 experiences while not in control. 866 replied, "It's like you're being driven around, and you're in the passenger seat, except your arms and legs are strapped down so that you can't move. You can't feel anything in your body either. The worst part about it is that you can't hold a thought for more than 5 seconds. I just want to enjoy being able to control myself a bit before I lose it. When you're stuck there, in your own head, you just want to scream, but you can't. You can try for hours and hours, move an arm, a leg, make a sound. It won't happen. You can't even control when you breathe. And then the hallucinations, the sloth." At this point, Subject 866 looked at the guards standing on either side of Dr. Chung and then the clock. He began to shake and said, "It's watching us. I can't face him again. I just can't. Don't take this personally, please. I'm sorry." 866 reluctantly lunged at the guard at Dr. Chung's right, but was immediately terminated following contact. After this interview, the clock was removed from Dr. Chung's room. Slightly more information came during the next interview. Subject 7444 reported constantly seeing the sloth out of the corner of their eye, and if they gave many details about what it wanted, they would suffer. A final interview conducted with a man named Jason indicated that the anomaly was becoming much stronger. This led directly to Protocol XXP9. The details of this operation are only available for Level 3 clearances and above, and for good reason. This protocol involved executing 6,200 affected individuals within 1 month by lethal injection. The order was signed by Dr. Chung, and though her decision does seem extreme, she understands the weight of what's involved as written at the end of the order. If you're on site and reading this, you're probably going to have to take part. Class A amnestics will be available after your duties are done if you so choose. Keep in mind the state of suffering these people are in. This is as much for their benefit as it is ours. Class A amnestics are standard memory wiping devices used after many events involved in SCP operations. Subjects, personnel, doctors, and general population members have all been given amnestics, the strength of which depends on the severity of what has been experienced. A major reason behind the act of keeping records here is due to the frequent use of these devices. You can get rid of all the emotions attached to what you've done, but still keep all of the relevant information and learn what must be retained in regards to anomalies. Amnestics are especially necessary when dealing with our final 3 entries. Code Red, the most difficult SCP entities to capture, and those which pose extraordinary threats to the human race. Opening this class is going to put our failsafes in jeopardy. We've held out so far, but the standard time for a security drone's presence in this room on the automated schedule is about to finish up, and access for these files has not been programmed for tonight. Once we're in, we've got to move fast and then get out immediately. Are you ready? Okay.
I'm angry this exists or could exist.
SCP-1157, Peter Class, known on the record as the Bifurcating Man, better known among task forces by the code name Hydra.
I like it a lot.
SCP-1157 is a Caucasian male with brown hair and blue eyes. The subject's anomalous nature was first discovered when a body of 1157, designated 1157-1, surrendered to the local police in Arizona, claiming to be a member of a terrorist group. When a bifurcation event occurred while SCP-1157 was in police custody, the subject was brought to the attention of the Foundation and transferred to Sector 7 for containment and study.
I was like, why doesn't this
At
look as
intervals
even?
of approximately 4 weeks, all bodies of SCP-1157 undergo a simultaneous bifurcation event at 3:08 a.m. Eastern. While SCP-1157 sleeps, each subject will split into 2 identical bodies. The event is accompanied by a burst of light and energy which disables any recording devices.
Cool thoughts.
Any clothing or other items worn by 1157 will be deposited on the bed underneath the subject.
Turn.
Protocol G7 is reenacted immediately after every bifurcation event. The containment area is to be flooded with a gaseous sedative. A security team equipped with gas masks must enter the containment quarters and remove one of each resulting subject pairs for euthanasia, study, and disposal. SCP-1157 displays a limited form of shared consciousness. While each body exhibits their own personality and can make individual choices, they also experience the surface thoughts and impulses of all others. Based on subject interviews, at the time of SCP-1157's initial detention, at least 5 bifurcation events had already occurred. During containment, there have been 3 observed events. To the best estimation, the current status of SCP-1157 is as follows. 32 bodies contained, 34 bodies confirmed deceased, 45 bodies euthanized during containment, 86 bodies unaccounted for. In additional records for this entry, an interview was recorded with SCP-1157-1, 1157-1 because after initial containment he did split in 2, forming a clone which was designated 1157-2. Body number 1 states the reason for his containment. I go to sleep, and when I wake up there's one more of me. It has happened before, and the previous cloning in containment makes the 5th event. There's 32 of me now, he says, followed by, no, I will not. Dr. Torres, the interviewer, asked if something was wrong. They can hear us, you know. The rest, 1157-1 reported. They're not happy with me. You can hear them all, Dr. Torres asked. 1157-1 replied, yes. A bunch of scared bullies shouting in my ear. I saw what they did. I saw what I was becoming. No, not me. You. I made a choice. The subject shut his eyes and breathed deeply. I'm sorry. There's a lot of them now. It's overwhelming sometimes. The interview ceased at this moment.
10.
In the other room, SCP-1157-2 was able to repeat the entire conversation.
11.
Additional
Have fun,
reports
Clara.
indicate that masses of SCP-1157 clones have come together to train for combat and begun stockpiling weapons. Though 1157-1 was originally cooperative, the clones have all shown the same growing need for resistance. Each raid by the Foundation on 1157 safe houses has been met with increasingly heavy violence. Inside of containment, the clones have attempted riots under HiveMind actions, and after the most recent attempt failed, those who survived all carved completely identical phrases into their cell walls. You cannot contain me. Should one escape your grasp, thousands will arise within the year.
Drop a loop.
Elimination efforts for 1157 are well underway. Meanwhile, researchers continue looking for a way to effectively deal with our next entry. SCP-029 is a Keter class, appearing as a pubescent female of Asiatic Indian descent. She appears to suffer from alopecia universalis. Over 80% of her pigmentation is a true black, while the rest of her skin has a complete lack of melanin to the point of albinism. Her eyes are also a dark black in color. SCP-029 has severe homicidal tendencies and has displayed a remarkable ability to use any item as a weapon. However, she has a severe compulsion against shedding blood, preferring instead to strangle her victims. 029 has demonstrated dexterity and physical reactions 4 times as fast as the average human. 029 has also displayed enormous resistance against damage in all forms.
Front, left,
Both of these extra human abilities are greatly hampered in the presence of bright or direct light, natural or artificial. In addition, any males who come within the presence of SCP-029, an area defined by her current perception, find themselves pliant to her will. Such males become willing to kill or even die for 029.
Why is this so hard? Am I doing it wrong?
SCP-029 refers to herself using an ancient word that translates as Daughter of Darkness. Interviews with 029 have proven difficult to conduct due to 029's constant attempts to kill or convert all who speak with her. Over her years of captivity, the black patches on her skin have increased in size. SCP-029 was first brought to the Foundation's attempt by an agent working in rural India. An attempt on his life led him to a small cult of men who claimed to be thuggies in service to the daughter.
Okay, I'm yarned over.
Several weeks of investigation proved that they believed the world to be in the last years of the Kali Yuga, and that by sacrificing 1 million people to the Daughter of Darkness, they could raise their goddess and end the world. They also believed that only sacrifices performed through strangulation added to the tally. Events led the agent to their mountain fortress where he discovered 029. After the loss of said agent, forces were ordered to conduct a siege which ended in acquisition of SCP-029. 7 years after capture, 029 began showing anomalous growth in her black pigmentation. When questioned about it, she claimed her followers were on the move once more. Investigation led to a concentration of so-called thuggies that had escaped initial foray. After discovering that all followers were there for one of their holy days, a tactical airstrike was called in. When the first bomb dropped, SCP-029 awoke from slumber, screaming at the top of her lungs. 029 continued to scream for the next 4 hours, ranting and raving that we were killing her people. Since this event, the growth of black pigmentation has stopped completely. 029 has also redoubled her efforts to escape. And, okay, speaking of escaping, the Foundation just broke one of our failsafes. We are definitely past the time this drone should be connected on the maintenance schedule and the system knows it. Their security is digging in. We've gotta hurry. Word of warning though. If you're squeamish about violence, gore, mutilation, bad things happening to kids, and some not so pleasant bodily fluids, you don't want to experience this final entry. SCP-2852 is a horror story unlike anything else in here. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to evacuate before we take this on. Hurry though, we don't have a lot of time. Once the second failsafe is broken, we're gone. I like his interpretation of SCP.
I like it a lot.
Alright, let's finish up. SCP-2852, Keter Class, known as Cousin Johnny. Incidents of SCP-2852 have the appearance of a middle-aged white male. Biologically, the cells of SCP-2852 are genetically identical and human. However, incarnations do not have any identifiable organs. Their bodies are made up of fibrous muscular tissue, with teeth and hair being made out of chitin chemically similar to those of the cicada family. The eyes of 2852, while looking non-anomalous from a distance, are set in the sockets without any nerve connection. While capable of speech despite having no vocal cords or analogous organs, 2852 does not show any grasp of language, speaking in a word salad. Despite this, all individuals at a 2852 compatible event will perceive the subject as speaking intelligibly and will regard its actions as normal unless briefed of its anomalous properties beforehand. Individuals describe 2852 as being playful with a crude sense of humor, and all individuals affected in a 2852 event will refer to the subject as Cousin Johnny. 2852 incarnations appear at various Catholic and Anglican religious functions and are treated as being an established member of the family. Incidents of 2852 are accepted regardless of family resemblance or ethnicity. The entity appears at baptisms, weddings, and funerals, referred to as blue level, white level, and black level events. Currently, no 2852 incident has been found to appear at any other family gathering. All attempts at tracking SCP-2852 before and after an event have met with failure. The entity is able to appear at such events as though they had always been there, even appearing between frames when under surveillance or simply evading any attempt by operatives to keep them out. All tracking devices placed on 2852 have malfunctioned immediately. Each family gathering that SCP-2852 attends results in different behavior from the subject and varying
Hanging in
effects.
there, how are you?
Generally, the result of 2852 appearing at a family gathering generates more serious damage done to children, although adults are not free from its effects.
So much nicer.
It
I
is
think
worth
that we should
noting
go
that
all the way
stopping an
down,
SCP-2852 instance before it involves itself in the religious ritual will not prevent its effects
Look at
from
how much
spreading,
nicer
although
this
they may be
corner
diluted.
looks than
The
this
appearance
corner.
of Cousin Johnny at an event is enough for its effects to start spreading among the family. When questioned after an event, all affected individuals report a feeling of fondness towards 2852,
Sorry, y'all.
regardless of its
This
actions
is how
during
we
an
do
event.
it.
And hey, are you sure you want to stay with me on this? We're about to explore the details of blue, white, and black level events, and they're not for the faint of heart. I'll give you one more opportunity. This entry is a red Keter class for a major reason. Okay, hope you have a strong stomach. SCP-2852's effects at a blue level event are present more strongly in the child being baptized, its parents, and any godparents chosen for the occasion. During the baptism ritual, 2852 will involve itself directly in the proceedings, acting as a third godparent when traditionally there are only two, a male and female. Blue level events proceed identically despite the presence of a third godparent until the child is submerged into the water. Immediately, the child's top layer of skin will come off in one piece, as though molting. This process does not seem to harm the child. The godparents will then eat the skin between them. Afterwards, the mass will go on as normal, and SCP-2852 will exit along with the family. It is of note that 2852 does not appear at any family celebration held after the baptism.
Horror.
The baptized child has a chance of dying within 6 months, well above the national average. Living children exhibit multiple Cluster B personality disorders. Most join anti-capitalist groups, various organizations of government interest, or, if unchecked, will engage in destructive behavior usually manifesting in self-harm, abuse of animals, or abuse of small children. Godparents and biological parents will be rendered sterile regardless of SCP-2852's success in becoming part of the baptismal ritual. Both groups commit suicide within 5 years of a blue level event, normally through drowning. All attendees not involved in the baptism ritual are 500% more likely than the national average to have stillbirths. Those who are still capable of having children are far more likely to abandon them, sometimes allowing the child to die in the process. One couple affected by a blue level event in Ohio gave birth to triplets, which they then tore apart and hung from trees around their property. Past adolescence and into adulthood, children exposed to the song of cicadas respond with extreme anxiety and accompanying physical symptoms such as dry mouth, nausea, vomiting, and headaches. Some subjects' agitation escalates into violent outbursts which have resulted in at least 20 fatalities. When interviewed about the cause of their disturbance, no subjects have ever identified cicada song as a trigger. Even in one interview involving Level 5 enhanced interrogation, the subject never indicated the role of cicada song in his attack on a parish, which resulted in 18 dead and 10 wounded, including his parents and 3 siblings. White level event. During a marriage ceremony, SCP-2852 will insert itself as a groomsman, and its most deleterious anomalous effects will only manifest after the vows. Once the rings have been exchanged, 2852 will produce various implements that allow the bridesmaids and groomsmen to pull out their teeth one by one. The individuals seem to be oblivious to any pain that would normally take place during such an event, and blood loss through still unknown means does not occur. The bride and groom will be presented with the teeth and will eat them.
Ugh!
Damage done to the bride and groom's teeth and jaw are extensive, but any blood loss that occurs will not be fatal. The groom will then, in place of vows, vocalize a currently unknown cicada song, which has been known to reach 140 decibels, rendering the bride and those on the altar deaf. Currently, no groom has been deafened by his own call. At the wedding reception, 2852 will take the role of the best man and give a speech. This speech, as all vocalizations of SCP-2852, will be nonsensical with no patterns to the words used. Individuals will react to the speech with mixed emotions, some crying uncontrollably and others falling into hysterical laughter. After the speech, 2852 will produce a gift for the married couple. This gift
I am
currently
not
has always been
following
3.5
backrooms, should I
kilograms of
be?
human hair of
Crocheting
various
looks hard.
colors,
I'm
13
doing it
dead
stupidly.
cicada,
I'm
and
taking
23
extra
human
steps
teeth
so that
in a
I don't
cardboard
have
box.
to do extra steps later.
DNA testing on gifts has been inconclusive.
Crocheting is,
The bride
it
and
can
groom
be
of a
hard,
white level event will divorce,
but I recommend
on
it to
average, 2 years
everybody
after
because
their
once
wedding,
you get the hang of
usually
it,
as the
it
result
is
of domestic
easy,
violence.
it is second nature, it
Any
is fun.
children born during their marriage will have cluster B personality disorders or life-threatening disfigurements. All married individuals attending the event will find themselves unable to have children, despite a lack of detectable changes to fertility-related biology. All children involved in a white level event will avoid romantic relationships, and 9 out of 10 commit suicide by the age of 18. Roughly half pull out their teeth until blood completely blocks the airways, and the others bite their own wrists until death occurs through blood loss. Black level
Damn.
event. Black level events are notable in that any attempt to disrupt the event through any means result in the actor becoming a participant. Currently, there exists no way to stop or end a black level event. Any attempts at barring SCP-2852 from the church or funeral home result in him simply appearing inside. During a black level event, 2852 will take the place of the eulogizer, even if one was not meant to speak during the mass. The speech, as any vocalization by 2852, will be nonsensical with no patterns being found. However, as the subject proceeds, the individual closest to the body will open the casket and produce a long knife. The knives produced during a black level event are not seen before the event and disappear after. The individual will then exsanguinate themselves, normally from the wrist, but there have been events where individuals have slit their throat. In turn, 2 by 2, each attendant will use the knife to pour their blood into the casket. Children too young to exsanguinate themselves are helped by adults. Despite many losing enough blood to result in death, no physical effects are seen in participants.
Okay.
SCP-2852's speech will eventually turn into the song of an adult male cicada. All participants will respond with the same call, despite the song of the cicada being limited to the male. Cousin Johnny will stand at the pulpit until each individual has bled themselves, and then will walk to the casket and vomit a mixture of blood, wood pulp, and dead cicada. Once finished, the funeral mass will go on as normal, and the casket, filled with blood and 2852's vomit, will be taken to the cemetery and lowered into the earth as normal for a Catholic or Anglican funeral service. Black level events can end here, but if a family gathering was planned to take place after the funeral, SCP-2852 will attend. 2852 will, once all individuals affected have arrived, vomit a similar mixture of blood, wood pulp, and dead cicada into a bowl. This mixture will be primarily eaten by the affected children. After this has been consumed, 2852 will give another speech of nonsensical words without patterns, strip itself, and lay upon a table. The participants then will eat 2852's flesh until there is nothing left. During this, SCP-2852 will still vocalize, even when suffering from mortal injuries. Participants have been known to carry on friendly conversation with SCP-2852 while eating him. Children unable to chew whole food properly will be fed mouth to mouth by any caregivers. All participants of a black level event will break from their family either through suicide, moving, or divorce. Every individual involved in an event will be rendered sterile. Domestic violence in participants of black level events will usually be of a cannibalistic nature,
I also love found footage, by the way. Found footage, paranormal horror is the only thing that is even capable of really scaring me anymore. Besides stuff that I'm unwilling to watch, like cartel gore videos and stuff, that scares me too.
And speaking of which, we're all uninvited guests and security's about to crack the second failsafe. It's time for us to break this connection. Thank you all for joining me in the dark this evening behind the 4-foot-thick concrete walls of the SCP Foundation. Major thanks to all of my supporters on Patreon, whose contributions helped us pay the bribes needed to get inside of here and hire enough hackers to hold out this long. Their names will automatically play after the connection breaks. I made sure of it by the coding. Stick around to check them out.
Strong.
Once more, I'm Nick Nocturne, and we're getting the hell out of here. The second failsafe broke, and they just found the third. I'll see you again real soon. Sleep tight, and wish me luck. I'd really hate to be incarcerated. Good night.
Oh boy, oh boy. That was hard to listen to. It was. It very was. Wow, he has a lot of patrons. Good for him. Why am I struggling so much? Jeez Louise. I promise I am okay at crocheting. I don't suck. Maybe I do. Maybe I do suck. Maybe I'm like every amateur photographer who thinks that they're the best thing that ever happened to photography.
I hope so,
even though they're
because a
not
lot
really
of work
that
went into
good,
making this
only like
happen.
crochet.
If you are watching, it means my treatment for the subject of this video turned out in our favor and we beat the system again. I'm not sure if there's going to be repercussions for it later, but we got lucky last time, and hopefully we'll get lucky twice. I'll be honest, I never expected a trip into the SCP Foundation to be as much of a hit as our first adventure last year was. You guys enjoyed learning about the monsters among us even more than I enjoyed getting the information. After a turnout like that, I felt twice as motivated to get more entries from the vaults of the Foundation to celebrate October. Unfortunately, breaking into a top-secret facility is the kind of trick you only pull off once without being captured and thrown in containment yourself. So there's no going back the way we came in last time.
I am a very self-deprecating person. I hope it doesn't upset you, but that's not something that I can just turn off.
It's been a weird and dangerous adventure on its own. But after a bit of digging, I struck gold.
I have a high level of confidence in myself in a lot of things.
The difficulty of being the secure, contain, protect foundation in today's world comes mainly in the contain portion of the mission statement. Since the advent of widespread media, and of course the internet, keeping secrets has become insanely hard. Bad for them,
putting my
good for
nose
us,
to the grindstone
depending on what
and
we're
getting
after
shit
anyhow.
done when I need to.
The Foundation has a lot of enemies and plenty of rogue agents, leakers, and employees who have just let information slip to the public.
Let us say that
and
about
you can leave it to society to take advantage of their unhappy accidents. Many Foundation secrets have been collected and hidden in plain view, disguised as more innocent things, planted by those who want the world to know the full extent of reality. Thanks to the work of a friend in the field, I'm now the owner of one such collection. A VHS tape from 1996 that has a very limited amount of copies. The Foundation actually knows about the company responsible for making these, and some of the tapes they've made are cataloged in their web crawling security. I have no idea if the VHS I've come across is part of the archive, but we'll find out by measure of whether or not this video goes down. As a precaution, I'm playing this in a room far removed from where I am on a VCR setup with remote controls for all the normal functions. It was pretty tedious to set it all up for a live recording onto my desktop from quite a distance, but I did pull it off.
That was really sweet of you.
I've also made the video run through a system that changes up the audio and converts the original video format to the new standard, 16:9, so we won't be seeing things in a big square as if this was really 1996. This approach serves a dual purpose. First, it messes with the image on the tape enough that the Foundation web crawler shouldn't be able to catch it. The audio, likewise, shouldn't be too easily detected. Second, I've heard rumors about these tapes. It's just pure speculation, but some believe the Foundation has been rounding them up because the tapes themselves are containment-worthy anomalies that pose a danger to viewers, and not just because they're hiding Foundation secrets. If that's the case, we might see something happen while viewing, and be far enough away from whatever danger it poses. I think. A bit of background for you on this tape. The company that made it was a legitimate independent studio that operated from 1992 to 1996. I say legitimate in the sense that they were actually trying to be a company who made products, not in the sense that they were actually a good business. You know all the no-name studios and production companies making cheap cash grab movies to put straight on DVD for children? Groups like that have always been around, and this was one of them. Dilly's Home Video specialized in peddling sci-fi, horror, and weird subject videos for as cheaply and quickly as they could. Total mass marketing, shot in the director's backyard garbage and schlock from the 90s. That's essentially what we've got here. Pleasant viewing, right? Don't worry, the value lies in what one of the employees at Dilly pulled off, hiding SCP Foundation secrets in the middle of the video bargain bin at retail chains across the United States.
Hell
He convinced the producer to create a series called Dilly's You'll Never Believe It, a rip-off of the much more famous Ripley's Believe It or Not. The producer at Dilly's thought it was just a smart move, conning people into eating up urban legends and weird tales, drawing on their morbid curiosity and appetite for the odd and outrageous. But the employee who was trying to smuggle SCP secrets as part of an enemy group to the Foundation knew it was the best way to get the word out on a potentially devastating scale.
Love it.
Remember, this was 1996. The internet was just a baby at this time.
The
Home video was
museums,
massive.
The show.
Now here we are today
books.
with one of the only surviving copies of a Dilly's You'll Never Believe It
half
tape.
of it is fake
It apparently
as fuck.
features 8 crazy urban
don't
legends that you might
care.
encounter today.
I love
And while
it
viewers would never
so
believe it, they would
much.
have been right to. Everything in here is an SCP Foundation entry. My research let me know that there have been quite a few embellishments and changes to the source material in Dilly's tape, but that's to be expected. The employee actually writing for the videos would never want to be too specific, or the Foundation would catch wind immediately. I've got details with me here on the entries to separate fact from fiction, so we'll make the proper stops along the way to clear the air and get the real story. With that settled, let's get into it and hope the web crawler hasn't added this video to its archive yet. Dilly's You'll Never Believe It. 1990s straight-to-video D-list production studio garbage at its finest. Here we go.
But we put together our entertainment stand on my new computer desk for work and it made me so happy.
Have you ever
Fucking that
walked
should
home
feel
alone
so
at
good.
night
I
in your
can't wait to
neighborhood,
get my new
feeling your
desk.
spine tingle
I
with
can't
the sense of
wait.
being watched? Have you ever entered an old antique store and placed your hand on an item that filled you with dread? Have you ever sat at a campfire and listened to stories of ghosts and goblins that played in the woods while you slept? Take all those feelings, all those fears, mix them together, and brace yourself.
I don't know
You're
why
about to
I'm
experience a
counting. There is
powerful
no
cocktail
reason
of
to
shock,
count.
intrigue, and horror. Legends, stories, and tales to keep you up tonight, if you can believe them. Dilly's Home Video is proud to present You'll Never Believe It, True Urban Legends of America.
Don't you guys miss
Autumn is a
Josiah?
wonderful time of the year in the United States.
I
The leaves
miss
are turning,
Josiah.
the air is growing just a bit colder, the night falls sooner.
We did
And
our
everywhere you look,
weekly
there are
not
big,
hanging out
beautiful
day
pumpkins
last
to be found.
night.
But those among us with less than mighty
I only
immune systems
barely
know,
survived
there's
it.
always the burden of seasonal illness that comes with every glass of hot apple cider. For one sleepy New England town, the annual autumn cold is the least of all worries. Chester, Massachusetts, is a place just 45 minutes outside of Springfield.
Oh,
Home to just
Catalan,
under
that's the
1,300
best. I'm
residents.
so
It's by
excited.
no means a very big place, but it's just big enough for those living on its woods to catch sight of some fearsome visitor. Since the early 1950s, locals say there have been visits by a doctor of death. Some call it a man, others call it a creature, but all agree on its appearance. A cloaked,
It actually
hooded
sounds like
figure
Martin
wearing the
Wells.
mask of a plague
Am I
doctor,
crazy?
stalking the woods outside of a quiet little home. Some stories vary in their descriptions, but a pattern has come to emerge among them about the sightings of this mysterious visitor. He appears once, signaling the start of a light illness in the home, such as a headache or a cold, usually coming across as seasonal allergies. After 5 to 7 days, if the illness has persisted and grown into symptoms, he appears again, and the sufferer will become bedridden. 2 days later, if the sufferer has not been taken to the
What was the
hospital,
purpose
the
of
doctor
bath
will make a
salts
very
aside
late
from the
and
zombie
very
thing from a long
intrusive
time
house
ago?
call. And
Oh,
those
they
who stand in
make
his way
they
become immediately
make
ill as the
your
first sick member
water
of the
more
household.
buoyant.
During his third
They
visit, the
make
house call,
They-
the hooded
it's
doctor
like
will
several
isolate themselves
medicinal
in a room
properties. You
of
would have
the
to look
infant.
up all of them because I am
It's
not a
unknown what
doctor and
goes
I'm
on
not
in the
sure
room
of all
at
of
this
them.
time.
Also, they
All doors
smell
and
nice.
windows become locked and impossible to see
But
through.
it does things to the water
Once the
that
door opens, the doctor is
that
gone, and the ill member of the
have
home lies dead,
benefits for
showing
you.
all the symptoms of the infamous bubonic plague.
Okay, so, for some of you who are SCP Foundation buffs and have done some snooping of your own, you're already familiar with this one. SCP-049, the Plague Doctor. As popular as he is today, the Plague Doctor was a relatively unknown sort of menace during the 90s to everybody except the Foundation, and this creature is a lot more dangerous than a visual representation for sickness entering the home. SCP-049 is reported as having a touch that's incredibly lethal to humans. It begins activity patterns by choosing a human target, which is referred to as SCP-04902. After the Plague Doctor places his hand on a victim, they'll begin to suffer a severe reaction, the details of which have been censored from the record, and instead of becoming bedridden, the victim dies in moments. SCP-049 then proceeds to kill all humans it can find nearby in the same way. It never just stops by visiting one sick person. Once the area is filled with corpses, the plague doctor returns to victim number 1 and takes a bag filled with scalpels,
Trying to figure out how you would
needles,
do this for
thread,
single
and vials of
crochets.
unidentified liquids from under its cloak. 049 will begin dissecting their first victim and injecting various chemicals into the body. After approximately 20 minutes, the plague doctor sews SCP-0492 back up and simply waits. After a few minutes, victim 1 will resume vital signs and seemingly come back to life, but without any higher brain function. Like a zombie, they'll wander aimlessly until coming across another living human, and then begin attacking mercilessly. Reports indicate that SCP-0492's adrenaline and endorphin levels increase to approximately 300% at this time, and it will kill as many people as possible before coming down from its adrenaline spike. Then, until contained by Foundation personnel, it will continue to wander, looking for more victims.
I did a bad
Only one
job.
interview has ever been conducted with SCP-049, some of which comes down to it expressing that the plague doctor is looking to cure the pestilence. It's not said what exactly that pestilence is or what the cure really involves. The Foundation is still conducting research. Let's move on to our next urban legend and see how much Dilly is left intact.
Here's hoping our first stop in Haunted America didn't make you too sick. We have much more to see. Follow us now as we head
Vicky,
west,
you are
just to the edge
just
of
the
New York State,
sweetest.
into a village called Forestville. A very quiet farming community. Forestville's
Yeah, no
population is
sweat.
small enough for a word to get around
I
whenever something
definitely
odd
look it
happens.
up because
For
there's a
years,
lot of
there's been
things
talk
that
of a
it
local
can
legend
be a benefit
that, while
for.
placed in other towns and villages to
And,
some, started right here.
I
As a
feel like
quiet, work-minded place, Forestville doesn't have quite as much activity to keep its
a lot of
children
people
busy.
could benefit from
Because of
Epsom
this,
salts,
many of them
and
have
they
taken on
don't
the
even
role
know.
of explorer.
You know what I mean?
Its reputation for getting the youth outside to play and experience the hidden world is the catalyst for our second urban legend, a tale far more unbelievable than what lies in Chester, Massachusetts. It's been said that in the local park, there's a trail leading into the woods going over a small hill. Short drain tunnels have been built into its base, helping even out the flooding of any heavy rains that pass through. On any day, the tunnels are clear, and children occupy themselves running through them. But years ago, the locals say, there was a child who decided to visit the tunnels past the time he should have been home for dinner. With the sun almost fully set behind him, the boy approached the hill, climbed down, and prepared to enter the tunnel so he could run through to the other side. But crouched in the middle, its back turned to him, there sat a monster. A monster, unlike anything he had ever seen. As small as the village population was, it didn't prevent locals from dropping trash nearby. And it seems the park had taken its trash and remade it into something new. Something evil. A man-shaped creature made out of garbage lurked in the tunnel, and as soon as it spotted the boy, it reached out with arms made of cardboard, tape, and plastic. He crawled out of the end and ran as fast as he could, the monster trailing behind him, a nightmare of trash and Mother Nature's anger.
I like the angle they took for the story, I really do, because it's a lot better than the reality. Mostly because the tunnel monster, SCP-3663, is actually very sad to talk about. According to the Foundation records, 3663 is a humanoid entity constructed primarily from cardboard, adhesive tape, and twine. It's fully capable of movement and making sound, and is capable of some communication,
Give me
responding
one
to
moment
questions
while
and
I look
reacting to
this
its
up.
immediate
This
environment.
is a fucking
Underneath the
incredible
boxes and
discovery.
tubes,
Thank
researchers
you so
have
much,
found
Bardic
cardboard and
News.
paper models resembling all major human organs, with colored wool representing blood vessels and the nervous system. 3663 doesn't need these organs to function, which is even more interesting. It can transport itself and other objects over long distances, with no limit to the range discovered yet. Though it can go anywhere, 3663 prefers small, confined, tunnel-like spaces, or a network of spaces that resemble tunnels. It has a very predictable pattern of behavior, which repeats after completion of a cycle. SCP-3663 will manifest in a tunnel-like area or system of enclosed spaces, waving its arm and making noises, attempting to look frightening. It wanders the area for a while, just trying to appear as if it's a monster until coming across a person. The tunnel monster will then grab the person in question, resulting in immediate senses of paranoia and fear, and they'll both teleport to a new location that seems like a tunnel or a maze. The person will be unconscious or very much out of it, but otherwise alright. SCP-3663 then teleports again on its own, appearing in yet another area resembling a tunnel or system of tunnels to repeat the cycle. Attacks on 3663 have resulted in immediate teleportation, which seems to repair the creature if it takes any damage. An interview conducted with SCP-3663 reveals a very odd personality type for the entity. It responds to all questions with a form of statement or assertion that it's not an SCP, it's the tunnel monster. The tunnel monster captures people. That's me. I'm the tunnel monster. I I capture people and take them into the tunnels where I live. In the tunnels, the pipes, I'm the tunnel monster. The tunnel monster keeps responding in this way, sounding unsure of its own identity or struggling to keep hold of its own intentions. Things get really interesting here when it says, I don't want to do this. It's what I do. I have to do it. I'm the tunnel monster. 2 wet patches are observed forming on SCP-3663's face. Please, I don't want to play anymore. I'm the monster. Shortly after this interview comes a report of Event 3663 Delta, detailing a containment breach. The tunnel monster emerged from the Site-54 maintenance tunnels and began to emit vocalizations in excess of 80 decibels. These vocalizations, described as pained by on-site staff, had a profound psychological effect, placing many personnel into a state of shock. For roughly 4 hours, SCP-3663 wandered the facility, attacking staff and engaging in small-scale vandalism of facilities. Of note is the fact that SCP-3663 repeatedly attempted self-harm by means of knives, pipes, water taps, and firearms. While SCP-3663 was repeatedly destroyed in the process, it subsequently remanifested in the nearest air duct or maintenance area. After the event, 2 bodies of former personnel were found in Site-54. Autopsies showed the cause of death was buildup of paper residue in all major blood vessels, as well as sinuses, ear tubes, and digestive and respiratory systems. A number of other staff members were found to have been affected to a lesser degree, but are expected to make full recoveries. An addendum to the article makes everything about the tunnel monster much clearer. The Foundation apparently discovered a very old security camera tape that shows 2 young boys between the ages of 8 and 12 playing in a construction yard. The first, designated 3663-1, is running from the other, who is wearing a cardboard suit that looks precisely like the tunnel monster. It becomes clear they're playing a game in which the boy in the costume chases the other through sections of an unfinished water drain system. They're running through small tunnel pieces. During the moment of the sky darkening, the boys appear to stop playing and try removing the suit, only to realize that it's stuck. The camera turns to static, and when visuals resume, only the boy in the tunnel monster suit can be seen, wandering around, grabbing at the costume head before suddenly teleporting out of sight. The other boy was reportedly found unconscious in a subway line many miles away, with no memory of their friend at all. They claim to have been playing alone. Foundation research revealed that just before the containment breach resulting from the severe upset of the tunnel monster, the boy from the video who had been playing with him, the last friend he ever had, died at the old age of 79. Efforts are still ongoing to figure out how the boy in the tunnel monster costume actually ended up becoming the tunnel monster permanently. This is one of those cases from the archives that seems entirely silly until you begin to really read into it. Then, it just becomes sad. Let's see how our next entry turns out. I'm thinking it will be much less sad, but just as weird.
Speaking of children, our next entry ought to make the parents in our audience think twice about being lax in their religious raising, and make our younger viewers remember their devotion a good bit more, if you can believe it. Not quite taking place in any specific location, this tale concerns all those adopted by a belief system that mentions the ultimate adversary of humanity, the devil, Satan, Beelzebub, the dragon, the king of all lies. All of these names, and yet only one way to accidentally summon. When children are tucked in at night,
because I was looking
there's an
for
expectation
tutorials.
that if they have been recognized by a path of faith, they will pray before falling asleep, asking for protection and love, and giving thanks to their higher power. Most children raised in this manner follow through, and some adults
Feel free
among
to
us
give
who
me a
didn't always take this
TLDR.
precaution in their youth have come to light recently to express that there were, indeed, consequences for ignoring the lessons taught. In the middle of the night, some children who neglected their prayers recalled the lights in their room suddenly coming on without being touched, shining a bright, burning red. Just as suddenly as this occurred, they would hear the front door of their house open, and those who were within sight of it noted a tall, dark, hooded figure entering their home. Running to bed, the children would soon see they wouldn't be escaping the sudden intruder. He would glide in through the bedroom door, and without a word, approach the seat closest to their bed. The figure would sit down, produce a book from inside their cloak, and then take off their hood, revealing a dark, red face and 2 horns growing from its head. With clawed hands, he would open his book, for surely it was he, as they could now see the devil himself had entered their bedroom, and he would begin reading from inside. Fairy tales from hell, quite literally, would be told to the children. Morality lessons, much like the ones told in Sunday school, would be shared, but now including vivid descriptions of the evils and torture brought down on all naughty children who disobeyed their parents, their teachers, their priests, and their God. Crying, sobbing, and hiding from the storytelling devil of any sort would get a serious wag of the finger and a shaking of the head, and the visiting devil would relish the act of describing every punishment inflicted on children in his bedtime stories. Survivors of this encounter all say he read different stories to them, but they were all equally horrifying. Vivid tales of suffering on emotional, mental, and especially physical scales. And no matter who he visited, he would always read the same amount of stories, 6. Then he would rise, slowly leave the room, making sure the child was fully traumatized along the way, and then exit, his work done.
Yeah, that's pretty traumatizing, I'd say, with the way they sold that one. But actually, the truth is that children who forget their prayers aren't the most likely victims of this at all. Coming across SCP-2980 doesn't involve prayer. Instead, this event stems from turning on a nightlight with a red mounting bracket that has a smiley face drawn on both sides. Apparently, this object works whether electricity is flowing or not, as long as you flip the switch to the on position and plug it into an outlet. At 8:30 p.m. in any time zone, the light will suddenly come on, glowing bright red, and all other lights in the room will dim until only the nightlight is glowing. That is when literally Satan will appear, materializing inside the room with a small black book containing leather binding and parchment pages. He'll put on a pair of glasses and, for 15 to 20 minutes, read a story or a short collection of stories to anybody in the room. If the
Satan
listener
is
falls asleep during the
nearsighted.
story, he'll simply disappear.
See you later, Hacksmith.
If they listen to the full story, they'll
Thanks for
still fall
hanging out.
asleep and then wake up 9 hours later, reporting that they feel incredibly well rested. Examination of the stories told reveals that they're not morality lessons to scare human children at all, but instead the kind of nursery rhymes you would tell a demon child born and raised in hell. Here's The Little Demon Space Cadet, about a small demon who makes a spaceship out of human bones to fly to the moon. Sleepy Time with Grog the Unspeakable, a tale about a creature who is trying to find a good place to settle down for his millennium-long hibernation. Bedtime for Baby Beelzebub, a story about Satan being laid down to sleep with the help of a blanket made of damned human souls and the screams of the tortured. Danby, the legend of a young deer who signs a deal with a demon to go on a blood-soaked journey of
Shut
revenge against
up.
humanity after his mother is shot by a hunter.
This one's
And a
kinda
story about a creature in the
stupid,
Foundation's care
IMO,
that
I'm
Satan
sorry.
claims
I
is
think that
actually
a
just a
lot
work
of
of
SCPs
fiction.
are stupid, and
They're
this
still
is
trying to
one
figure
of
that
them.
one out. An interview was conducted with
Are you
SCP-2980-1, the being who came from the nightlight, aka literally the
I
devil,
don't think you're
who says,
stupid for what
I
it's
think I just got tired of doing the same old thing all the time, you know? I mean, everybody sort of gets in their head that it's some easy thing to torture and damn people for an eternity, but it really starts to wear on you after a while. Besides, for the last 1,000 years or so, I'd really been wanting to take my writing on the road, right? Get out there and see my people. So a few months ago, I loaded up my things, and well, here I am. It's revealed in the interview that the nightlight which summons him was discovered in an orphanage, and Satan says he put it there to do a bit of charity work, helping the less fortunate children sleep at night. I really don't know what else to say about this one. I guess it's just kind of cool that it works, right? 9 hours of sleep guaranteed with a well-rested feeling. Let's
I
keep
would
going with
take
our
that.
video.
Yo, Satan could come visit me
A
every
bit
night.
less on the religious side and quite a lot more on the unbelievable side. Our next tale comes from the city of Wichita Falls in Texas. Imagine, if you will, your daily afternoon television, your favorite shows, the way they usually present themselves, the cast of characters and the situations. Imagine a sitcom just like them, but broadcast deep into the night when the world is asleep and there is nothing on the air aside from commercials and filler. Imagine a sitcom airing at this time, unannounced, in the middle of an advertisement, and focused entirely on talking dogs. This is an odd event that citizens in Wichita Falls have been experiencing since the early 1980s. Never on a strict schedule, never at a strict time, but always between the hours of 2 and 4 a.m. The Doghouse is a show that viewers say is played out by actual animal people talking and acting like human beings. Those who view the program say it presents itself like any other show, even including
They're just
name
watching
and roll credits
BoJack.
at the beginning, though a full cast and crew is never revealed at the end. Attempts to record the program with the VCR have been made, but all result in pure static. Even in video recordings of the television playing the show result in static.
This does
Thankfully,
look so
Dilly's home
much
video
better.
was able to provide us with this
This
kind of
looks
accurate
so
visual representation.
fucking much better. Everybody say
Kind
thank
of.
you to Bardic Muse for being
so
amazing.
here's what they got wrong or didn't include. The show doesn't air at all anymore, and we'll get to the reason why. But when it did come on the air, it happened every Tuesday at 11:30 p.m. and ran for 20 minutes. The show did include actual dog-human hybrids. Real, living animal people standing up and wearing clothing, acting like any kind of normal person. But it also included a college-age man as the central character. The entire show was set up like a form of sitcom taking place in Los Angeles, and there were anywhere between 4 and 8 dogmen at any time. Episodes came out in the sitcom setup right up to about episode 14, when it was
Ooh, time to
reported that a
hydrate.
breakdown
Give
in
me just
visuals
1
began,
second
and
here.
many lines of dialogue were unrelated
Thank
to
you
the
for
plot of the
looking out
show.
for me, Envy.
There's
I
one exchange
appreciate
noted by the
you.
Foundation
I
as
hope
being
Moth is
significant.
okay.
An unnamed canine says, "Please don't let it break," to which the college-age man replies, "I won't." "It's too important to break. It's been so nice being able to think," the canine says. "I know. I won't let it break. I'll fix it somehow, I promise." I suppose I
Nice.
should just enjoy the moment before
How
I have
are
to
you,
go back.
Dixon Cider?
At least it
Good
gave me
to
these
see you.
moments. I'll always have that. The following episode had no title sequence and simply contained 19 minutes and 32 seconds of footage showing 2 malnourished dogs lying in a cage. They barely moved for the duration of the video, and the camera did not change position either. The following week, no episode aired. The Foundation made a note of its absence for the 2 weeks following that as well, and then they made a breakthrough. In Canada, a rented space was investigated by its landlord following the failure of the man renting it to make a payment. Discovery of what was left inside prompted calls to police, which alerted the Foundation. A cleanup and research crew arrived to find 4 large dog crates and 7 corpses, 1 college-age man, and 6 dogs of different breeds. Recording and broadcasting equipment was found, much of it broken, including a VHS player labeled "Outgoing Episodes." 1 surviving dog was found, a male Weimaraner displaying signs of severe deformity
I
and
love a
malnutrition.
Weimaraner.
The dog passed away within 1 hour of being removed from the location. Autopsy
Wow.
revealed that portions of its skeleton had been replaced with human bones, mainly in the spot of the jaw, skull, and legs. This is another one of the entries in the Foundation's archives that starts out pretty silly, but ends up as the complete opposite of the tunnel monster. Much more disturbing than sad. Let's see what else we've got on this tape.
While the group of dogmen in Texas are confined to their TV, you may wish to be careful about your choice of lifestyle, as you might bring out our next unbelievable legend right to you. Once again, this item is not confined to any one area. It can happen to anyone who fits the description at any time. We all know about certain people in life who close themselves off to others. The hermits, the unsociable, the lazy and uninspired.
Been sick for
Young men
2
who aren't in
weeks.
school, working, or seeking
No!
to better themselves, choosing a
I
life
hope
of
you get
wasting away.
better.
We've
Hay
all thought
fever
about saying
is
something to these people, just a
miserable.
helpful
I'm
word to
so
push them on
sorry
their way
that
to
you have
getting
that
out a bit
going
more
on,
or pursuing a
but
higher purpose. But
I'm so
succeeding in
sorry.
changing someone like this is no easy feat, and is best left to professionals. If you think the treatment is something they deserve.
Y'all,
Known as
if
the
you're making
Lonely
this
Strangers,
shirt,
these
definitely
specters appear
do
to society's willing
alternate
hermits,
turn
in the shape
chains.
of dark, humanoid
Or
creatures wearing
chainless
white
turns,
masks.
rather.
They approach slowly, not stopping in their pursuit until successfully making physical contact with a target.
I
The
can't
person is
get
wrapped
over
up
how
in their
much
cloak
better
for a
this
moment,
looks.
according to those who have
Bardic
been
means
visited, and then find themselves alone,
sincerely.
wearing the outfit of the specter. All traces of the ghostly visitors will have disappeared except for the cloak
You are
and
my
white
muse
mask.
now.
From this point, it seems the story lines up pretty well with what's actually detailed in the Foundation archives. It's surprising how on the mark the producer was in seeing this one come through without many changes to the real account. For the sake of brevity, we'll call this group the Lonely Strangers, and they do indeed go after lonely people who are isolated by choice or self-generated circumstances. The needs of society, specifically, those who are not in education, employment, or training, are very likely to be targeted, and even though a visit from the Lonely Strangers can turn them around, it's the worst possible medicine for their situation. First, let's tackle the idea that anybody visited is embraced and left wearing the clothing of a lonely stranger. This is definitely false. According to the article for SCP-414, all these creatures have to do is touch you or have a face-to-face conversation, and their effect is going to take place. Anyone who contracts the illness of SCP-414 will have a very rapid and sudden change of heart, reporting that their lifestyle of isolation and self-preoccupation has finally become exhaustingly lonely. They can't deal with living this way anymore, as it's not even living, and they begin to seek out other people, stating that solitary activities no longer give them pleasure.
I can't
They'll
wait
start
to
trying
do
to
this in the
experience
round.
prolonged moments of activity with others at least
Stop
once every week,
themes?
and it's
Oh
reported
my
they begin losing
God.
memory of times in life that help shape their personal
I
identity.
can't wait.
Their overall sense of self starts to severely decline, and the need for other people increases, making them seek out major periods of contact every 4 to 5 days. They also begin looking for major social events, finding a need to engage in them once a week. Over time, the person will grow such a dependence on interaction with other people that any time spent alone will result in episodes of depression, which worsen as the disease increases in potency. Only social contact helps cure this illness, and any excuse to be part of something or be around people every 2 days is taken. Victims report that they can't remember ever having significant relationships that last longer than 2 years, and their sense of self becomes their name, gender, age, and current mood. They appear to feed their emptiness by engaging in as much activity as they can,
Phenomenal.
including community service, odd jobs, sudden moments of being helpful,
What do you
and
mean?
even hosting events.
The
A very
shameless
sharp contrast to
turns.
who
I'm
they
just
once were.
still
During the final
absolutely
stage of the
fucking mind
illness,
blown
victims
over
report
this.
hallucinations and actual physical sensations of being hollow when they're not being
Never had
social
it
with
before, but I
people.
think I can do
They'll
without it.
actually
Well, I hope
become
you get
upset when
to.
not
I
in
hope
proximity
you
to
go
another
to bed
person for
tonight
any
and
length
wake
of
up
time
tomorrow
over
feeling right
15
as rain.
minutes. They can't recall ever having significant relationships of any kind.
I don't
There
know
are no
that one.
survivors of
Fixer
this
Cider. I don't know
condition.
any of them
The
by
longer a
number, to
victim
be
lives,
honest.
the closer they come to committing suicide, unable
Okay,
to satiate
see
the
you
need
later,
instilled in
Fred.
them by the
I'm
lonely
looking forward to
strangers.
it. I'm very
Nearly
excited.
half die at their own hand around the 5-year infection mark, with a range closer to 3/4 by 10 years. Those over the age of 40 at the time of infection have nearly double the risk of suicide during the same time spans of infection duration. An interview with the strangers by an SCP researcher who was unfortunate enough to contract the disease reveals their intention. The doctor asks, "Why are you doing this? How do you benefit by doing this to people?" The group of strangers then speak as one, replying as if they were a single being. They work so little. They are held up when they need to be the foundation. The young much so. I will help every one of you. Even when they kill themselves, the doctor asks? Even when they forget who they are? How does that help? What is your reasoning? It is a last usefulness to society to die and leave resources for others. Others make use of them. Forget yourself for your society. You cannot be egotistical when the ego is carved out. Selfishness. I will cure it by excising the tumor. I cure society and make the lost find purpose. I help. The story of Dr. Chang, who was told goodbye with a kiss by the lead stranger, goes exactly as expected from the description of the disease. It's most likely the reason the
Sneaky
Foundation
guy.
has such detailed info about
Hi,
how it
baby
works and what
man.
happens at each
Oh,
point
okay,
of
bye.
infection. It's a pretty sad and very morbid
He decided
story,
not to
I'll
hang
admit. Perhaps our next entry will be later.
Those who are already outgoing people may find themselves turning down their own friendly nature with our next tour stop. It's well established by now that picking up strangers isn't the best idea. Too many stories of the good-natured hitchhikers turning out to be less than genuine. But in this tale,
You are
you'll
the
find plenty of
second
reason to
person
avoid being
today
too
to
kind on the
recommend
street,
that channel,
if you can
Dixon
believe it.
Cider.
In the town of Chesterfield, Indiana, there's a story about a young woman walking home alone at night along the road. She's been said to have long, flowing hair that is almost white and wears a red sweater. Those who have seen her claim a very strong urge to stop and ask if she needs help. Any driver who stops for the woman receives a gentle nod of the head, and the woman enters the back seat. Polite answers are provided to any questions asked, and the girl states that she's heading home, just 2 minutes or so down the road from where she was found. The girl will instruct the driver to stop at an opening in the trees alongside the road, appearing as if it were a long driveway. She will thank the driver, exit, and walk into the dark. It's at this point that a driver may notice she's missing her red sweater, or they'll see it themselves in the back seat first. A call will be made to the girl that she's forgotten it, and after a moment of silence, she returns at the driver's side window. "Thank you," the girl says, then pulls her hair away from her face, smiling and revealing that her eyes had been torn out of her head, leaving empty, bleeding holes, laughing as the driver speeds away. Curiosity has gotten the better of few drivers who know the story or picked up the girl themselves. During the day, they've gone to the spot where the girl claimed her home was, and ventured down
Why
the
did I
path
do
between
that?
the trees. Always
That was
waiting for them at the end of the
unnecessary.
driveway was not a house, but a graveyard.
Okay, we've
The
got
true home to a girl who was nothing more than a very
1,
frightening
2, 3,
ghost.
4, 5.
Okay, never mind what I said about hoping for a nicer entry because this one is not so fun. SCP-1337, The Hitchhiker, is way closer to Halloween storytelling material than most of what we've come across so far. Let's clear the fact from fiction right away. There is a hitchhiking ghost girl, yes. She does wear a red sweater, she'll pretend to be dropped off at her house, walk into the darkness, and leave the sweater behind. That is true. Her name was Mary Talish, who was abducted, ritually tortured, and executed as part of occult practices on May 19, 1952, in the town of Muncie, Indiana, which is near Chesterfield, but not actually in it. She began appearing as a ghost 19 months after her death on the 19th of each and every month, so it's not possible to encounter her at a random time. She would flag down passing vehicles and tell anybody who picked her up that she was lost and needed to go home. Mary would then give directions to the driver that led them directly past the graveyard where she was buried, then encourage the driver to stop there. Mary would leave the car and
Fucking
vanish,
hello?
nothing about disappearing into
Why
the
did that
trees.
happen?
Her sweater would remain behind, and anybody who touched it would feel an immediate need to return it to her home, where her parents lived. According to the article, Mary appeared as a completely normal, healthy woman during the years following her death when picked up as a ghost. It was in 1973 that things took a very bad turn.
Hi, sweet
The
Kika.
foundation had enlisted the parents of Mary Talish in their efforts to lay their daughter to rest, who, as you can imagine, were a little bit overwhelmed by strangers showing up to their door to give their murdered daughter her sweater time and time again. One of the researchers took it upon himself to prove to the Foundation that he could decommission the case without figuring out the details of the ritual torture and murder that made Mary Talish a ghost. His logic was that if Mary had no home to return to and no one to accept her sweater, she would stop appearing. The
Dixon
researcher
sighed
went
a
behind the Foundation's back and signed off on a
You
kill
know
order,
what's hotter than a
executing
dad
Mary
bod?
Talish's
A
parents and
father figure.
demolishing the house.
Agree.
3 years later, SCP-1337 was considered decommissioned. Mary had stopped coming
Also,
back.
a dungeon dad
As
bod.
horrible as his methods had been, the doctor appeared to have been correct.
Thank you
It
so
was
much
in
for the biddies,
1983
Dixon
when he
Cider. I
returned to the site
appreciate
on a
you.
whim to ensure
Over
that there
here,
were
Kika.
absolutely no remnants of the hitchhiking girl. According to the article,
Kika.
his last transmission consisted of only the words,
Come on.
"Wait, who the hell are you?" When security arrived on the scene, the doctor was found deceased, his body mutilated in the same manner as Mary Talish's had been when she was found.
Come on.
Since that time, on the 19th of every month, SCP-1337 has returned with a different method of operation. Recordings have shown that its physical appearance has changed. SCP-1337 still manifests with the same basic physical appearance, but now shows the wounds of its death. The eyes appear to have been gouged from their sockets, and its clothing is ripped and stained mid-chest to reveal the empty
Hi, Alpha
cavity where
Pine.
its heart
Long
was
time.
removed.
How are you?
SCP-1337's range of movement has
Yeah,
extended to
it's
all of the
SCP
back roads of
time.
Muncie. If a vehicle stops for SCP-1337, it vanishes from view to reappear on another road.
Sorry,
Should a
I'll
vehicle
take
pass
a short
1337
Kika
by,
pet and
it will
break.
then appear inside the vehicle, where it will reenact the methods of its murder upon the driver of the vehicle. 1337 will only appear for vehicles containing one person. It appears that Dilly's home video went with a mix of past and present for telling us the story of the hitchhiking girl. On the first run, she was perfectly normal, and on the second, she had no eyes. Either way, this is a ghost you would never want to run into, and it certainly isn't decommissioned after all. Mary knew what happened to her parents, and when the man responsible
20 years
appeared,
is
she
long
knew
enough.
exactly who he was.
Dixon Cider, I believe in you.
Those who understand the lessons of our last unbelievable story
I think
know
you're
the
gonna
dangers
do
of
great.
hitchhiking strangers.
You're
But
so
isn't there another
sweet
kind of
and super
responsibility we
funny.
owe society when it comes to the
I
elderly?
think that you're gonna do great.
Our older members of the community are often in need of our help, and we'd be looked down on quite severely if we ignored
Also,
this
you
situation.
have a new roof.
But
I
in
mean,
one particular instance
who
of
doesn't
seeing
want
an old
that,
gentleman in
man?
trouble, you may just wish to turn the other way. Happening just about anywhere you'll be unlucky enough to meet him, there have been stories told of an elderly man lurking about in isolated places. Sometimes an alley in the city, sometimes the deep woods, and even
Oh,
through
love
sleepy neighborhoods
Kika.
just after sunset. Always bent
Yeah, that
over
might be
and lurching,
Kika boy.
signs of aging. The old man
Just
is
met a
covered in
family relative
strange,
I haven't
hooded
seen since
attire. The only
early
visible
last year
parts of
for
him,
late
his
Christmas.
wrinkled
It's
face
good to
and
catch up with
long
them. I'm
white
happy to
beard.
hear that.
He appears in places and times that practically force those who see him to approach and ask if he's alright, knowing that his presence is very odd
Y'all,
and even
Kika's
troubling.
being so cute and
If his
sweet.
attention is called, he'll change his direction and head towards the one who's
My
called out,
precious
not looking
boy.
at them until finally stopping directly in front of them. Survivors of this encounter, few in number, then
Ow.
report the old man removing his hood, taking hold of his beard, and then tearing away his face, revealing
You're
the
so
skull of mankind's
precious.
oldest fear,
I love you
the
so
Grim
much.
Reaper, Death himself. In an instant, he'll vanish, leaving the bewildered viewer to struggle over the reality of the sighting. Then, as they run from the spot, they encounter him again, now with his famous scythe in hand, ready to reap their soul.
Another sad case, and another example of Dilly's blending the real article to present separate facts as one piece of the legend. SCP-1440, the Old Man from Nowhere, is almost right in its presentation here. 1440 is described as a man of unknown ethnicity and age, according to Foundation archives. He travels alone and is constantly wandering, seeming to avoid civilization at all times, due to the nature of his
Well,
anomalous
Kika planning
effect.
break.
He is, by all appearances through his energy and touch, the Grim Reaper, and not even objects made by people escape his death-sentencing aura. Contact with creations and people result in their demise if the Old Man from Nowhere stays around for too long. He and his belongings are the
I'm
only
so
exceptions
happy
to the
hear
rule
that
of
it is under
destruction. Single
warranty.
people, groups
Moss,
of
give us
humans,
an
and
update
entire
if you
cities
have
and
time,
towns
if
can
you
be
can.
affected by his presence,
You doing
and he is fully
okay?
aware of this, choosing to avoid human life at all times. The only time he's ever made his way towards somebody on purpose is to seek his own demise, which is how the Foundation was made aware of him in the first place. He had come across a doctor on her way to work at a redacted site and asked for the Foundation's help, hoping they would be able to destroy him.
Give you a minute.
He was brought
Sure.
into the site for questioning, which led to its ultimate destruction, killing everyone inside and destroying 6 SCP objects under containment. Attempts to reach the Old Man after this have only produced similar events. The fourth point of contact attempted was recorded due to precautions, and an interview took
wish
place
you
that gives
guys could
insight
see
into
how cute he
SCP-1440's
is.
condition. one brave doctor made contact personally with a man to provide inquiry. "Do you know why we brought you here?" they asked. "Of course I do," 1440 said, "and I applaud you for still attempting to contain me, but since your last 3 attempts I came to realize you cannot help me. It would be best if you let me go, for your own good. The first brother is already standing behind you, Doctor. You would best hurry." "You mentioned these brothers before. 3, if I recall correctly," the doctor replied. 3, aye. Different, but one and the same. All cruel, all vengeful, all capable of holding a grudge for a long time. They are the cause of my misfortune, and therefore the cause of yours. The second brother joins the first. Time is running short. Release me, or I cannot vouch for your safety. It might already be too late. I'm afraid I can't do that. Besides, you mentioned 3 brothers. If the third isn't here yet, we must have some time left.
Everybody's
The
very,
third never appears. If that, he is
like
crueler than
every
both his brothers,
topic
for he
is
knows his
very
appearance is the only thing that
divisive.
will set me free. I have spent time untold searching for him, trying to return his
And if it's
prize
been
and those
20
I
years,
want
I
from
can
his
understand.
brothers,
You're,
but to no
you're gonna
avail.
have a tough time, but
The second
I
has
think
his
that
hands on your
also
shoulders.
you're
It is too
going to
late
be
now.
successful.
Doom is never far behind the second. Before you perish, my poor child, allow me to give you a word of advice. Should you choose to challenge death to a game of cards for your life, there's one thing you must never do. Win. Immediately after the final statement, the on-site nuclear weapon stored in the area detonated, defying multiple security systems that kept it from activation. The site was destroyed, and all personnel died. SCP-1440, however, was spotted more than 3,000 kilometers away 1 week later. He suffered no injuries. And if that wasn't enough to freak you out, we still have one more stop on our list according to Dilly's video. What could possibly be freakier than a real-life Grim Reaper walking around that can decimate a city just by coming near it?
Nearly all of our legendary tales have had the appearance of something you wouldn't wish to come across, or would have had the sense to avoid entirely.
ya?
But what does a person do when not even something that can normally be enjoyed is tainted by a menacing force? For this stop, we head to Rye Beach, New Hampshire. Here lay the remains of Rocky's Ridge, a theme park that's been long abandoned after closing in 1987. Rocky's Ridge always had financial issues that made keeping the park open a difficult task.
I feel like
The
I've
tragedy of
actually
1985 was the
heard.
true mark of death for the park. In similar fashion to other larger amusement parks in the United States, Rocky's attempted to have an underground area for its mascots to change
Feel like
costumes and get around the park in
Heard
secret.
of Rocky
The tunnel
Ridge,
system has been in
Rocky's
operation
Ridge.
for years with no major incidents involving employees. But in late September
that
of
a real place? Is
1986,
that a place
a
that
gas leak
actually
in the
did
tunnel
exist?
turned deadly. When a
Taking a while,
disobedient
either Seattle is
mascot
pretty well
broke the
stopped
no
the desire
smoking
to
rule.
out of me.
The
Are
tunnel
you
system
planning
ignited,
on
killing several employees
like-
instantly and creating a cave-in that trapped many other. Despite
Are
their
you
attempts to
planning on
honor the lives
staying
lost
there
and reach
forever?
settlements with families, Rocky's Ridge couldn't avoid the plague of public outcry and controversy
You
that
don't have
followed.
to be sorry,
It shut
Victoria.
down
That's
officially in
okay.
January of 1987 and
I'm
salvaged what they
hanging
could
in
of the
there.
park, but didn't possess enough funds to take care of all of that remain. Over time,
Hanging in
the
there.
state of New Hampshire assisted in removing the ruins and revitalizing the land into an official public park, but locals say the tragedy of Rocky's Ridge haunts the area to this day. Visitors who have broken into the fenced-off area claim to have seen the remains of mascots haunting this location, exacting vengeance for their deaths by enforcing the no trespassing rule by force. Some believe they're spirits that can't move on, others insist they're zombies, saying the mascots are those who survived the tunnel collapse and ate the bodies of fellow employees to survive. Now, they hunt trespassers,
Alright,
killing and
Cass,
cannibalizing
but
them to
you
continue
can
their
maybe
undead
sirens
existence.
start going off and I
Reports say
panic.
there have been mutilated corpses
They
of teenagers
were,
and college students found in the
from
park,
more or
and
less
some
like
caretakers on
those
official
multiple
business
F5s
have even shared a
terrified
few
of
words of
tornadoes.
warning about there being a presence still lurking in Rocky's Ridge.
If only it was as simple as ghosts or zombies. SCP-3325, live entertainment, is a little bit more horrifying than both of those things. According to Foundation records, the location in question is not an abandoned theme park, but it is a place that was created to entertain children. It's an abandoned television studio grounds with underground labs, living spaces, testing and containment areas, and a mass incinerator hidden away. Owned by Real Characters Industries, this was a site designed for the creation of biologically engineered children's entertainment mascots. Take the idea of Sesame Street, or Barney, or something like it, and imagine a mad scientist using real human beings, animal DNA, and bleeding-edge biotech to make living puppets for those shows. Always in character, always obedient, never having to be paid or take government-mandated breaks, and able to be mass-produced and potentially sold to companies who saw the value. Now imagine this kind of setup going horrifically wrong, because of course it did. Whether it was someone in a costume that was lobotomized and brainwashed to the point of only understanding their character as their personality, or a talking, walking fantasy creature that was never meant to exist, every level of these experiments failed in one way or another. Video logs recovered by the Foundation reveal the mascots had mental deterioration to the point of only understanding animalistic behavior, turning them into scared, angry abominations with a need to escape. Video 1 reveals a practice run for a show segment failing as the Big Bird ripoff jumps ahead on its lines and then begins biting human co-hosts. Video 2 shows evidence of 2 guards abusing some of the creatures in their holding cells, revealing that the hats the experiments were wearing as part of their costume were actual organic portions of their bodies. Discovered Media Artifact 3 is an audio log from one of the researchers stating, "The applications for these subjects are endless. Children's television shows are just the tip of the iceberg. In 50 years, we may be seeing petting zoos, live performances, appearances at events. We may even succeed in creating subjects that are suitable to be kept as pets." The audio log details the researchers' efforts to improve the creatures, talking about how they've achieved speech by restructuring vocal cords, but intelligence is severely lacking. They need a neurologist or two to come on board. There's eventually a very serious issue of cell destabilization addressed after that record, and notes made of a character actually breaking down and melting on stage during a recorded performance. As time goes on, the researcher states deep concerns about the behavior of the latest batch of characters. They seem to be showing a previously unseen form of intelligence and displaying herd mentalities. Things really begin to unravel when there's a security breach stemming from a group of characters all playing dead, luring the guards into their cell to be attacked. The researcher begins citing major security breaches on shocking scales as the creatures become far more hostile. The more they're stabilized and perfected, the more vicious they seem to become. At the end of the audio logs, the researcher describes men in suits who visit an area of the facility that nobody else is able to access or provided information about. This comes shortly before all the other researchers are rounded up by the characters during a mass security breach that released all the recent subjects. He says that the way it happened, it must have been planned.
I love you so much.
The researcher meets his end when unidentified men enter the room and shoot him 4 times, then confirm over a communication system that R36 has been terminated. The gunmen also state they need to evacuate immediately. The researcher contacted somebody just before he was found, so they need to get what they came for and get out. It's assumed that whoever was really running the show here escaped before the arrival of SCP Foundation personnel, who appeared quickly enough to capture evidence of what was happening under the TV studio facade, much of it in the form of all the creatures released from containment to execute the researchers and guards. Efforts are reported to still be ongoing for securing documents, creatures, and the locations of research facilities associated with the real characters industries. And that pretty much wraps up our dive into the leaks provided by Dillies. Let's see how they decided to end this Shalaki D Studio Trojan horse and call it a night.
Last but certainly not least on our list is our most shocking, true, and unbelievable story of all. Curiosity is man's inherent vice, and even though he's quite aware of that fact, it seems he just can't resist putting himself into danger.
Wait,
The fields beyond
the
your
slipcover
house
on the tape said there are only 8 stories. There wasn't any mention of a 9th, and we've already gone over the advertised runtime. I'm not sure we should go forward with this, but I'm not getting any readings of anomalous activity from the recording room either. And it's not letting me pause the
But now it's
video
here,
anyway.
just nearby, practically within sight of your window, and in the middle of the field, among the corn and pumpkins, there it stands. The Scarecrow.
Okay, rumors must have been right. We need to kill this off like right now. I'm cutting the feed. Give me a moment.
There'll be many before you. There'll be many more in an hour.
Alright, that should have done it. I'm not feeling any anomalous effects from seeing what little of that we did. But then again, I'm not actually human myself, so it shouldn't have much of an impact on me.
Does she like
As
you
long
back?
as you guys are okay,
Dixon
we're all
Snyder?
good, right? Some SCP objects are harmless, others only work on you if you do a certain thing, others only operate on certain levels. We should be alright. Just tell me if anything starts to go not so great on your end, okay? I'm going to do a bit of digging and see if I can find out what this one was meant to be. We ought to be fine. I'm sure we'll be fine. Everything usually turns out okay with these things. That's all for now, everybody. I'd like to thank you for coming by to view this with me for our second journey into the SCP Foundation archives. Major appreciation goes to all of my supporters on Patreon who made this entire endeavor possible. Really, without Patreon, this version of the SCP Vault would never have been possible. It took a lot of effort, time, and resources to make this happen, and I appreciate you all so much for making it a reality. If you'd like to see even more NightMind content given as much of a visual angle and punch as this, and a certain other upcoming October video or two, consider joining my Patreon. Even just $1 a month helps out tremendously and makes it possible to do things like this and everything else that's been created for this October. You might even get to see some behind-the-scenes content on the making of this material. Stick around to the end of this video to see the names of all the creatures of the night that are already supporting the channel. If you've enjoyed this edition of SCP Vault and NightMind content in general, hit the like button and subscribe to see more. Don't forget to click that bell icon that YouTube forces me to talk about so that you actually get notifications for videos that upload. And consider dropping a comment down below telling me which SCP entry was your favorite. And of course, if you start seeing anything weird as a result of that last odd entry. Sharp-eyed viewers generally get a bit more of a kick out of everything I upload, whether it's my own doing or something I'm covering.
Oh.
That's all for tonight. Thanks for joining me in the dark again this evening. Once more, I'm Nick Nocturne, and like my need to leak extremely dangerous information to the public about monsters, murderers, and mystical mayhem, I'll be back again real soon.
Okay,
Sleep
everybody.
tight.
We are going to take a break here. Hang tight. We will be back shortly. Do not go anywhere. Howdy. We bake. I just gotta get Kika. Rory was not happy. Left. You don't get to take Rory to the shelter. I don't think she knows, and I don't want to bring it up on her streams. Oh, okay. Fucking, I pull Kika back onto my lap, and he immediately gets up and leaves before I even have a chance to change scenes so that maybe you will be able to see him. That's pretty bogus there, Keek. Not very cool at all. Anyway. Are y'all ready for the next one? Could I get 4 readies in chat, please? Please and thank you. Not very hell of a behavior. Agree. Being a hell of a cat can be exhausting. Sometimes Akika just needs a little break. Agree. Agree. He is just kicking ass all day, every day. Oh, Catalin, I will hydrate. I will hydrate, but we do have 4 ready, so I'll go ahead and unpause this and let it go through this stuff really quick. And take a drink of water here. Huh. I was gonna say some things. I don't remember what. I could just skip to the next video if you guys want. I think it's over. It's gonna just go. So never mind. Babe! What you doing? Kai have a kiss? Oh, okay.
Hello, viewers, and welcome back to NightMind.
I know, I'm
Thanks for tuning in this delightful October evening.
You're welcome.
All
It's
year
not
round,
October.
we usually like to dig into things that are all manner of dark and mysterious, but this season is always special. To keep in the spirit of making October fresh and exciting, I've turned to a new source of information and discovery to lead us on tonight's journey into the weird and wonderful, the internet.
Moffat,
I'd
it
like to think that
depends.
most homes
How
by now
deep are
are
your
aware
nail
of personal
beds?
computers or are
Dude,
on their way to getting
I have
one.
really
But
short
for
nail
those
beds,
who are
so I'm
currently
never
without
going to be
internet
able to have
access,
really
this should be a
long
great preview of everything
nails.
incredible
It will
hiding
always
online.
look crazy.
We're not the
I
only
have to,
adventurers in the
these
realm of
are
the
too
arcade.
long right now
Those
because
on the
they've
World
grown
Wide
out.
Web are
I
also
have an
walkers in the
appointment on
dark
Tuesday
woods
to
of
fix
reality.
them.
Follow me
Also,
now
this
as
one
we
popped
explore a
off
very
a couple
special
of days ago,
website
but
with
nobody's
even more
noticed.
impressive content. Secrets,
Anyway.
cryptids, and paranormal,
Yeah.
or SCP for short,
If you have
is an
if you
internet
have
site
deep
that
enough
opens
nail
to a
beds,
bold
then long
warning.
ones will
Never
probably
believe
be really
everything
nice.
you are told. The world around us is
But if you
filled with
don't have
creatures and
long nail
horrors that they
beds,
don't
then
want
I
you
wouldn't
to know about.
bother.
You found the one place you can turn to so you can see what's really hiding in plain sight and save yourself. According to the
Jaffiel?
webmaster, they discovered a box of files
Longer
2
than
years
mine?
ago in a
Do
locked
it.
section of an
Mine are
abandoned office
really
building
short.
slated for demolition that contained a great number of
And they
secrets.
always have been, and it's such
The
a
office
bummer.
building was a front for the infamous men from nowhere,
to
who
be
are the
fair, they're
gatekeepers to
longer than
information
they
about the
look to you
occult,
right
the
now because I
paranormal,
have
and the
grown out.
horrifying that the shadow operatives of the world keep trying to hide from the people. Below are the pages
False
we've made sharing this highly secretive information that will shock and enlighten you. On each, you will find a file number. We are labeling
not
them
gonna focus.
Secrets, Cryptids, Paranormal, followed by that file number from the original box. So look for SCP- followed by a number as reference. We're told to click
Yeah,
on
I
every
can't- I
link to
can't get it
arm
to
ourselves
focus.
with
Sorry, I
knowledge,
tried.
and that's precisely what I did, taking pictures of each page for you to compose our journey. Scrolling down the page, we read that the files listed are all severe threats to the ordinary citizen and plagues on neighborhoods around the United States. Be on the watch for all of these dangers and prepare your friends and family. The SCP items listed have name labels provided by the webmaster. Granny, Ice Cream Man, Life-Size Toy House, The Doorman, Stage Death, Author Empathy, Billy's Treehouse, and
shit.
The Candidate.
Never?
Now, I must say that even if we have explored a great number of intimidating mysteries together, remember to proceed with me at your own caution. You'll see nothing terrible, but your imagination can lead you to some dark places as we read. Keep the lights around you low, but do keep them on. SCP-545, Granny, may be determined as 3 separate parts. She is described as an elderly woman, most likely of Eastern European descent. Her skin is tanned and lined with age, but she has no blemishes or liver spots. Her hair is thick, completely white, and when let down reaches her waist, though she prefers to keep it pinned up.
I'm
Her
sorry,
eyes
is
are
this
bright
just
blue and
me
clear,
in,
with
like,
no
2
signs of
years?
aging. Despite
Never
her
mind.
evidence of youth, she very clearly seems to be at least 80 years old, but is doing physically exceptionally well according
Unless
to
my eyes
all
turn
manner of
blue.
testing, and her senses are far above average for her age. The woman claims to be over 800 years old and goes by a number of names: Granny, Beatrice, Miss Widow, and Totenkinder. She's generally pleasant and enjoys leisure activities like sewing, cooking, and gardening. Altogether a kind older woman, which seems to directly clash with the use of SCP-545-B, her only source of addiction. The underlying cause of her dependence on 545-B appears to lie in her pathological fear of death. SCP-545-B is a colorless, odorless liquid extracted from the body and found bottled in the home of Granny. Under examination, it appears to be slightly more viscous than water, but varies in texture and taste. It has been labeled Liquid Life, as drinking it extends the life of the user, slowing the process of aging, and often either slowing or completely ridding the body of disease. It can even heal major wounds if an injured person drank it quickly enough. Repeated consumption can prolong life indefinitely, but results in a dependency on the liquid while generating a borderline sociopathic attitude
Yeah,
in
that's
users
fair
towards
enough,
its creation.
Victoria, if you need
That
time.
seems like a
I'm sure
necessary
somebody would
evil
be
in order
willing
to
to
use,
let you
and
know when this
especially
one's
to
over.
generate liquid life. Because, according to SCP-545-C, a thin and weathered sheet of yellow parchment holding the recipe, the most vital ingredient for crafting the liquid is a human being, preferably a child, for maximum potency. With ingredients listed such as leeches, chicken fetuses, snakeskin, and spider eggs added to the main piece, a child, it's easy to recognize the danger to neighborhoods the webmaster wants us to see. Granny is a real grim fairy tale version of a witch. The recipe even calls for a large boiling pot, like a cauldron, capable of containing a human.
Dang it.
SCP-545 was located in a small Midwestern town under the guise of an elderly woman with mild dementia. The woods her residential neighborhood were located in led to an area near a river that was prone to sinkholes and had a small history of children becoming lost or dying in the woods. She was described by neighbors as kind and caring, and had a penchant for giving neighborhood kids small treats in return for helping her collect glass bottles. Her mode of operation was simple. Granny would buy a small house in a relatively dangerous area, collect glass balls around the neighborhood, and over time, gain the trust of children before going for a walk and pretending to be lost. Any children she encountered would be convinced to take her back home under the promise of food and candy. Interviews with Granny reveal she has repeated this process every 5 years or so, moving on once the amount of wandering children has been depleted, or when police attention has grown too strong to remain. Our next link leads us to SCP-1386, the Ice Cream Man. This was first known as only a white Good Humor brand ice cream truck in poor condition that lacked any images
Sorry,
or
everybody.
descriptions of its products. Originally, there seemed to be only a case of a living ice cream van. No one was ever seen driving behind the wheel, and none of the doors or windows opened through conventional means. The van would play instrumental melodies of Pop Goes the Weasel and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star 24 hours a day, alternating between the two every 4 hours. There's a thin slot in the middle of the driver's side door, which only becomes visible when the van dispenses the ice cream products it sells. Along with the ice cream, a small receipt is delivered with a price written on it in very sloppy
Alex
but
the
legible handwriting.
gamer. Alex
Payment
the
is issued
e-gamer.
through the same slot the ice cream comes
Alex
from,
the
and the van
gamer.
drives off immediately
Thank you
after
so much for the
receiving
follow. I
payment.
appreciate you.
Prices, flavors, and even the makeup of products fluctuate
Welcome.
daily, but it never seems to actually run out of stock. Testing was issued on the van, and the results are as follows. In March of 1987, 2 doctors each requested a cookies and cream smoothie and received it exactly as expected. One was marked with a handwritten letter M, and the other a letter G. The receipt was $4.89, paid without incident.
Cookies
On
and
April
cream
1st, another doctor
plus
approached and asked for a
caramel
Neapolitan
plus
ice cream sandwich.
cookie dough.
The van issued what looked like a
Plus
meat and cheese sandwich with
graham
tomato.
cracker.
Upon closer investigation, it was revealed that the meat, cheese, and tomato were just perfectly shaped scoops of chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry ice cream. The receipt issued read, April Fools, and the van drove away without requiring payment. April 17, 1987. Another doctor issues a test, requesting 1 peach push pop. It is received, but the price is quite high, $16.27. The doctor expressed disapproval at the price and refused to pay the full amount. When he attempted to walk away, the van opened the sonnet's door to an approximate height of 6 feet, issued a large rusted steel trap, captured the doctor, and dragged him inside. The slot shrunk to its former size and then spewed out a pink substance for 5 straight minutes before driving away. Inspection of the pink substance revealed it to consist of blood, skin, and bone fragments, all with DNA matching the captured doctor. April 30th, 1987. Testing D-Class personnel requested a Caesar salad-flavored popsicle. After a few moments, the van dispensed the popsicle with an off-green coloration noted to taste of lightly dressed lettuce and a hint of croutons. The receipt was $4.56, paid without incident. In May of that year, a new testing method was conducted. D-Class number 7, unable to speak, wrote down his request: vanilla cone and chocolate. The note was lifted to the dispensing slot. After a full minute, a new slot opened 3 inches below the usual area. A thin, flesh-colored appendage slid out to retrieve the paper before retreating and closing the slot. Moments later, the normal area opened and the ice cream was received. The receipt was for 97 cents, paid without incident. D7 described his interaction in frantic sign language. It was a hand, not human. 2 fingers and a thumb. It was bony like a dead body, and it smelled. It smelled dead.
Where's the
In June,
mod
the
app?
test was repeated.
I do
A
not
request was
know
written
what
down
you're
for a
talking about.
banana
I'm so
sundae with hot
sorry.
fudge. Again, the secondary slot opened, and the bony hand came out to process the order. The receipt was $2.78, paid without incident. The D-Class personnel stated, "There's got to be
Oh, you
somebody
mean
in
the
there.
mod
I
application?
could swear I heard somebody cough.
I'll tell
like
you
they had
right
a
now, I
cold
don't
or
think that
something."
we are
2
taking new
days
mods
later,
right now
an
because we
incident
just got
occurs
a new
without
one.
testing.
But definitely feel
D7,
free
the first tester to
fill
see
it
the
out
hand,
because
is
the
found
next time
dead
we
in their
do need a
holding
new
block.
one, people will
Autopsy
look.
reveals they died of strangulation, matching the suspicion raised by light bruising found on
The
the neck.
mod team will
The death
look
was marked as
and
suicide,
consider
even though D7
people
did
that are
not share
there.
a cell, and the door showed no signs of forced entry. The report ends here. There really isn't much to say except to carry on the warning of the webmaster. Be careful about what's in your
and
neighborhood,
it will
including ice cream trucks.
every hour.
Our next page deals with
it probably has popped by
SCP-2369,
now in chat.
Life-Size Toy House, a
Scrolling up, you
split-level
might be
home
able to find
located in
it.
an
If
unspecified
not,
suburban
then
neighborhood
at some
in
point
Iowa.
soon.
There are no
Hey.
reliable records or witness accounts to explain its origin or history.
Hi, Soph. How are
When
you?
at least 2 living humans are inside with
to
front
see
and
you.
back doors closed, the interior
Sorry
will
your
emit
sleep
a
schedule is
blinding
all
flash of light,
funky.
and all subjects within
I
will
didn't
disappear
stream
without a
last night
trace.
to try to fix
The
my sleep
interior
schedule,
will
and it
then
didn't
reset
work,
to
and
its
I'm
initial
really
state,
upset about
with
it. It
all
was just
removed or damaged
a
items
waste of
restored.
a day
Any items that
entirely.
had been brought in from
I
outside
did
will
fall
also go
asleep
missing.
earlier, but then I
The
woke
phenomenon
up in the middle
affecting
of the night,
SCP-2369
and then I
only
was up for
activates when
another
at
few
least 1
hours,
male
and
and 1
slept
female
till 2
subject are
p.m.
present, and to date, no individual involved in an
Yesterday, I didn't wake
activation
up until
event has been
4:30
found.
p.m., and I was like,
Experimentation
okay,
with
I
GPS
need to
tracking
fix
devices
this.
has not been successful. SCP-2369 was discovered following reports of a missing family. Concerned neighbors notified local law enforcement, and responding police officers forced entry and discovered the house to be in a pristine state with no trace of the family's belongings before accidentally closing the front door.
All-nighter and fell asleep in the afternoon.
Addendum.
Woke up, went back to bed,
On a
woke
redacted
up, and
date,
now
a
mostly
couple with an
rested.
extensive criminal record involving armed robbery and murder forced entry into the house in a burglary attempt. As a result, the anomalous effect of the
Well, I hope
house
you're able to get
activated.
it under control
Approximately
easily.
4 hours later, another flash of light was detected from within
Either that
SCP-2369.
or your world bends to
On-site
you.
personnel investigated and discovered the presence of the
Hoping I
couple
go
who
to
had
bed
forced
for a
entry,
couple hours
along
and
with the
just
tools
get
they
up
had brought
very
along,
early in the morning.
various
Yeah,
personal
that's the way to
belongings,
do it,
and
hey.
broken weapons. The woman was discovered in a manic state near the back door and needed
You have any
tranquilizers to
Benadryl?
subdue. The man was found comatose but alive in the living room with a length of unidentified
Or
plastic wrapped
NyQuil?
around his neck.
Or
Upon removal of the
Z-Quil?
plastic, his head detached from his body and all signs of life ceased. This plastic wrap was later found to be chemically consistent with any standard roll of household tape. A thorough search of the premises also turned up what appeared to be a handwritten note left in the living room. To whom it may concern, your product turned out to be extremely violent and completely unsuitable for children. I am frankly appalled. Were I not a more watchful mother, it could easily have resulted in bodily harm. I am requesting an immediate and full
Thanks,
refund.
babe. I appreciate
All across the
you.
United States, there are homes that seem
Thank
to permanently
you.
be on the market, dressed up enough to suggest that people live there, but no one
I
is
love
ever
you.
seen inside. It makes you wonder what exactly is going on to
I
prohibit
can't hear you. What'd you
residents.
say?
Now we can
Okay.
add SCP-2369 events to the list of
Sorry, I'm
possibilities.
gonna full screen this and turn
Let
off
this
my
be a warning
webcam
to
while
all
I
would-be
quickly
trespassers.
eat.
Speaking of trespassers and quiet little neighborhood homes, the webmaster's next entry is a man you'll never want to meet. SCP-1879 is a phenomenon affecting houses in Washington state and has been noted to only affect interior doors, which are designated
mashed potatoes.
SCP-1879-1. The doors aren't paranormal in appearance or makeup, but when a sapient organism comes within 2 meters of the door, repeated knocking is heard. It will continue indefinitely until someone opens it, at which point
Night,
a
Rana.
male humanoid entity will emerge. This man will then attempt to sell a product to the subject. Products appear to vary widely in purpose and origin, as the entity has presented a variety of objects. The entity will dramatically explain the purpose and appeal of the product to the subject, often cornering them and suggesting they sit down. The entity, who we'll refer to as the doorman, as the webmaster did here, will then offer a price. This price almost never consists of actual currency and usually is detrimental to the subject or their health. The doorman refuses to elaborate or comment on the definition of his prices unless he decides to raise them, which will happen if the product is not accepted or paid for quickly. The doorman is persistent in his efforts and refuses to leave the subject alone until the product is purchased. However, if it is sufficiently threatened or wounded, the entity will temporarily retreat back into his door, which will then revert back to its original state. The doorman will return within the same house later using a different door, confront the subject, and try even more aggressively to make them buy the product or outright threaten them into doing so, while also increasing the price. Once the product is purchased, the entity thanks the subject and exits the area using his door for good. The following is a short list of items obtained from deals with the doorman, along with the price and results. Object received: 1 red nose. Price: all I'm asking for is your heart. Result: subject died due to the sudden demanifestation of his cardiovascular system. Object received: 220 bananas. Price: give me some sugar, sweetie. Result: all candied goods within the house disappeared. Object received: a thermonuclear explosive. Price: I want your soul. Result: 2 of the subject's Aretha Franklin albums went missing. The following incident took place in Seattle, Washington, in the home of Shirley Yeats. Mrs. Yeats had called the police several times urgently, describing a salesman that wouldn't get out of her house and kept disappearing into random doors. Upon arrival at the scene, agents noted a male humanoid entity carrying a juvenile border collie and holding it in front of Mrs. Yeats while speaking rapidly. He addressed the agents directly, attempting to describe his plight selling the dog and how thoughtful he was to offer it before trying his sales pitch for the puppy to the agent, requesting only some of his time in return for the dog. Attempts to subdue and remove the doorman by force from the home were unsuccessful. He demanifested upon reaching the front door and then manifested in the house again 6 hours later. Mrs. Yeats was found cowering in a corner while the doorman begged for her to take the deal, now specifying he just wanted 12 years of her time. Unable to put up with the entity's presence any further, she reluctantly took the deal in a shouting match and then disappeared. The doorman similarly vanished through his entrance door before agents could subdue him. During a successful interception of another SCP-1879 event, an audio log was taken. The doorman was recorded mentioning how he had to meet a quota by the next day, or would have to stay in this world for the next century. A musical scale is heard emanating from the doorman, who stops knocking and seems to answer a phone call without moving. The transcript read, "Yes, boss? I know. That's not what you meant by soul. I just thought you'd get a kick out of... Yes, sir, I will. Yes, I'm sorry. It won't happen again. Please don't hurt it. I'll meet the quota this time, I swear. Yes, okay. Thank you. Goodbye, sir." Quietly talking now, he says, "I better get to move up to at least accounting this time. Just get me out of this place already. I've paid my dues and then some." Upon approach by an agent, the doorman turned and said, "Oh, you. Look, I'm busy, so I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you something. No money out of your pocket. Sound good?" Approximately 2,000 coins of assorted origin then manifested within the pockets, epidermis, and digestive tract of all subjects at the scene except for the doorman. All personnel involved in the event were confirmed dead. It's plain to see how the webmaster of secrets, cryptids, and paranormal would want the public to be aware of something like this, while the supposed men from nowhere who wrote these files wouldn't want the world to know. This might have been a plague on the state of Washington, or still might be. But there's no telling where the doorman could appear or what he might ask for. A word of advice for all of you at home: learn how to haggle, and do so quickly. Our next item deals with something you may only encounter if you have dreams of showbiz, but is still a paranormal event you might bear witness to sitting at home, just as you are now. SCP-878, Stage Death, is an actor with a prop knife closely resembling a 6th century iron dagger. He's never had a permanent role on any television show, nor a role of any real importance in any film. The actor appears every few months on the set of various TV shows, films, or theatrical performances during production. The crew forgets he was ever absent and that he doesn't belong on the cast, and the script is even altered to include him. After introduction of his character, sometime during the plot, SCP-878 will enter a situation that brings him into conflict with a much more important character. That conflict will develop into a fight scene that always ends the same. SCP-878 will beat his opponent mercilessly, far beyond what is necessary to disable the character and exercise much more brutality than is typically expected from the film or show being recorded.
Which makes me feel like a
Once the other
poser.
character attempts to stand for the final time, 878 will strike them with the back of his left hand, leaving them sprawled across a flat surface, pull out the iron dagger, and plunge it into the defeated character's heart. 878 will turn towards the camera, and at the moment his eyes lock with the audience's, the show will cut to commercial or the film will undergo a scene change. During theatrical performances, 878 will simply disappear, and no audience member will be able to remember where the character went. From here, the actor who has been killed will begin to display behavioral abnormalities totally uncharacteristic of their previous personalities. He will begin with minor scandals and addictions to vices, degenerating within weeks to cases of paranoia and homicidal tendencies. It eventually will lead to disappearance of the afflicted actor from the public eye, and due to the rate at which rising stars suddenly drop off, the anomalous effects of SCP-878 have largely gone unnoticed by the general public. Stress-related cover stories and false admissions of mental afflictions are given by the actors' families to cover for the rapid degeneration of 878 victims. A harsh case of leading men and women falling hard for sure, but our next file will demonstrate a different realm of creative enterprise meeting the paranormal.
Twitch chat is
SCP-3616,
quiet tonight.
Author Empathy, may be the harshest and most insidious of links on this website. SCP-3616 is an anomalous individual or potentially a group of people manifesting in places with developed literary communities. It appears as a person of any gender and physical characteristics or shows up as an online persona. In every case, they introduce themselves as an aspiring writer and participate in various literary communities and events. SCP-3616 is untraceable both as a physical person and an internet user. In the case of its physical form, it disappears immediately after line of sight is broken and any tracking equipment placed on it is rendered inoperable. The online manifestations use non-existent IP addresses. Physical SCP-3616 instances are always characterized by a number of traits, notably mostly black clothing and unnaturally elastic fingers. Web instances are characterized by the account name composed of the letters E,
Yeah, it should be better
R,
now.
S, and Y.
My
3616's
Mike was in a
personality
stupid
is not
spot.
consistent between manifestations, but some of its traits are universal for all sightings, including reluctance to
There is
reveal any
the
personal
type.
information and a strong interest in books belonging to the horror
I
genre,
hope that you
in
get to go to
particular,
bed very soon.
body horror. As part of its introduction to a community, SCP-3616 will present a number of literary works of high quality. The instance will then begin searching for its victim, most commonly an experienced and established writer. SCP-3616 will attempt to form a relationship with this individual, usually based on the mutual critique and feedback of
So
works.
we didn't even need this last
Duration of contact
row
depends on
here.
the time it takes for SCP-3616 to obtain information needed for its anomalous effects to take place. If contact is broken before this happens, the entity will not reappear. As the relationship with SCP-3616 persists, the victims will report increasing feelings of unease. In 73% of documented cases, affected individuals suffer sleep deprivation. The victims rarely associate these effects with 3616. SCP-3616 will then seek to manipulate its victim into sharing or writing a literary piece involving severe body damage. It is also required for the user to express satisfaction of the effect that this part of the story has on readers. When this occurs, SCP-3616 will cease engaging in discussion with the victim and will not respond to any previous means of contact. After approximately 5 days from the last contact, an SCP-3616-1 event will take place. 3616-1 events always occur between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., and only when the victim is located in their bed. Any electronic devices with a display will activate and show short messages.
I might make
If
a
no
slight
displays are present, the
alteration to
messages
this
will appear on the
pattern.
walls or ceilings of the room, written in black liquid of unknown
Where?
origin. As this happens, the victims become paralyzed and will begin to
I make it
suffer
a racer
hallucinations.
back.
After approximately 10 minutes
Except
since the
for,
beginning
I really
of an
like the way that I'm not gonna do
SCP-3616-1
that. I'm
event,
not gonna do
the
it.
victim will begin to anomalously suffer body damage they described during the last contact. The effects will cease within 1 hour. After 3616-1 events, the victims usually suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder and severe mental problems. This effect is presumed to not be anomalous. 96% of these individuals will also attempt to self-terminate shortly after the event, while also destroying their works. After the victim's funeral, a printed version of the individual's story mentioned in the last contact will appear on the grave. The cover will depict the victim during SCP-3616-1, and the book will include a dedication to SCP-3616. Publisher information will point to a non-existent company named Reformed Writers Association. Beware any amateur writer friends with particularly focused interests, all of you hobbyists out there. Some of them don't quite care to keep the boundaries between fiction and reality. We move on now to a realm that doesn't concern books, but does concern the same material they're printed on. SCP-974, Billy's Treehouse, is about 2 components, a living being and its
Southeast,
treehouse
I don't
home.
have it. It's run
974
entirely
is
by
reported
the
to be a
mods.
carnivorous creature that superficially resembles a
I
human
don't have.
child.
I would.
It
I
possesses
would
greater
be able to
durability,
get a
strength, and
hold of
stamina
it
than a
if I
child of
have
commensurate
had access
size
to my
and does
keyboard,
not
but I
appear to be
don't.
deterred by
It will
bullets or
eventually roll
weaponry.
back around.
It has only
though.
demonstrated an
It
extremely
does
adverse
every
reaction
hour.
to
It
flame.
comes in every hour.
Though 974 can briefly subsist on small animals like squirrels or birds,
I'm really
its primary
sorry.
and
I
preferred
would have
food
done it
source is
earlier.
prepubescent human children. Each time
if
it
I
successfully consumes a human child,
could,
it
but
enters
I
a state of
can't.
torpor, and its form changes over the course of 10
I mean,
to
like I
12
could,
days
but I
to
would have to
replicate the
disrupt
most
the
recently
entire
consumed
stream.
child.
You know what I mean?
It is capable of
Sorry.
speaking any language the child knew, although its vocabulary and
I don't mean
speech
to be a
structure is
fucker or
always
nothing.
very limited and simple. SCP-974's preferred habitat is lightly wooded areas such as parks or undeveloped land near moderately populated human settlements. Once it has settled into a new territory, it uses local vegetation, wood, and other available materials to create between 1 and 5 nests, designated SCP-974-2. 974-2 buildings are generally simple, crudely built, one-room structures, and are usually placed in the lower limbs of a tree or on low rises of land. Once SCP-974 has built at least one instance of 974-2, he will seek to lure a group of between 2 and 5 prey subjects to 974-2 by entreating them to follow it to the structure in order to play. 974 will participate in simple physical play activities such as hide and seek or tag with the subjects, allowing them to leave and return at a later time. This behavior pattern can last up to a week before 974 invites a single prey target to play with it alone. At this point, whether the target accepts or declines the offer, 974 will subdue the target and something occurs. The webmaster or the file creator has decided to redact this information, but the result is as follows. The clothing will be left with only minor damage and fluid staining. 974 will typically abandon 974-2 after this, although it will remain in its territory until the local population of children is depleted. 974 displays a heightened fight-or-flight reaction to the presence of post-pubescent humans and will immediately attempt to flee to an instance of 974-2 if it is aware that it is visible to such an individual. If retreat is not an option, 974 becomes highly aggressive and will attack all known post-pubescent individuals. Due to its increased strength, 974 has been known to dismember the targets of its attacks. Children are often told not to talk to strangers. It's a dark world we live in when other children become part of that category. Keep an eye on your kids and another on the trees in your neighborhood. And when you've made sure all is clear on that front, keep an eye on your TV set and an ear out for the radio regarding the last file provided by the webmaster. SCP-3129, the Candidate, a cognitohazardous phenomenon without any known or apparent source. Phenomena manifests as TV and radio commercials in areas holding local or state elections. These broadcasts can run for any length of time between a few weeks to several months. Television appearances of SCP-3129 have been limited to locally owned and operated stations. 3129 phenomena invariably focuses upon a human male, aged somewhere between 40 and 50, hereafter designated 3129-1. 3129 transmissions can vary in presentation and length wildly, but invariably remain on the topic of 3129-1's apparent election bid.
Now everybody's quiet.
No instances of 3129 have been found outside of the continental United States or presenting in any non-English languages. This is considered Stage 1 phenomena. Stage 2 begins after 2 to 4 weeks of exposure to Stage 1. Up to 8% of viewers will become fixated upon 3129-1. Civilians more politically aligned with the ideas presented in 3129 commercials are more susceptible to infection. 3129 adverts have not shown an overall political bias.
I'm not really saying a whole lot. I'm mostly
Class
just
B amnestics are
listening.
effective at treating Stage 2 infection. Stage 2 infections left untreated for over a month progress to Stage 3. Individuals under the influence of Stage 3 infection display fanatical devotion to SCP-3129.
Loud noises.
They argue with
I'm
open
glad that you're having a
hostility
good
against
time.
opposing viewpoints and ideologies. Stage 3 infected tend to seek out other infected in person and by way of online message boards and communities. A Stage 3 infection of SCP-3129 occurred in Asheville, North Carolina during an unspecified election year. Of its 89,000 residents, at least 7,000 were compromised. Officials along with MTF Tau 3 were deployed to the area with directions to suppress the spread of SCP-3129. Widespread amnestic dosing via Asheville's 3 water treatment plants was successful in preventing 3129 infection from continued growth. However, interaction with Stage 3 infected individuals prompted an official debrief for MTF Tau 3 agents Mayfield and Haas.
Quinn,
This
that's
log
fucking
recorded of the agent's
hilarious.
report concerns coming across
Holy
a convention
shit,
center where
that's so
30 or 40
funny.
civilians were gathered at 3
A
in the
town
morning.
where your opposition
All were
is a
standing
baby,
together,
just like, did you know that
deathly
he
silent,
shits his
facing the
pants?
same direction toward a stage at the far end of the building, which was lit as if being used.
I changed the
but
channel
stage
once, and
was
instead
empty.
of telling me how he
The
feels,
silence kept
he
as the agents grew
cried.
closer.
Okay.
But suddenly, there was an eruption of noise in the form of celebration. People jumping up and down, raving over something that couldn't be seen or heard, still directed at an empty stage. They grew quiet, and then a minute later, it happened again. Thunderous applause and cheering. This carried on for over an hour. Long moments of quiet and attention at something invisible, then major celebration. The closing statement reads, "Examination of the building in question revealed no capability to hold such an event. Said building is currently the offices of a now-defunct financial institution, and its internal layout is inconsistent with the description of Agents Haas and Mayfield. Investigation of this incident is ongoing. Agents Haas and Mayfield are currently on medical leave, pending psych
Also,
evaluation.
he's a war criminal, just putting that out
The
there.
webmaster has provided additional
He'll
documentation for us to
never
look
deny
at
it.
concerning this file. It begins with an audio transcript of a woman in her late 20s, giving affirmations to someone who is not there. Yes, I see you. Yes,
I've heard him
I hear
say
you.
some
I
pretty
won't look away.
racist shit.
I won't close my eyes. I will. My TV is on. I'll keep it on. I will.
Everyone says he
It's
doesn't
added
know
that
better. He
similar
doesn't
recordings
know
were made in
better,
the
but
homes of
shouldn't
5 other
your mayor know
individuals.
better? Shouldn't
In
your
each of the
mayor know
encounters,
better
the
than to say
subject spoke
that?
with the unseen entity for a period of up to 45 seconds, referring to their television sets several times each. During this
His
time, the
midnight-
television displays static to all outside observers.
Yo,
The subject spends
I
the
will
duration of the
campaign for
encounter
you.
standing in front of their TV
100%.
similarly to how a soldier might stand at attention. At the end of each
That's
encounter, the
fucking
TV returns to the
hilarious,
previous
dude.
broadcast, and the subject returns to their seat. All 6 events occurred within 8 minutes of a Stage 1 transmission occurring on the subject's TV. A note follows about behavior in those infected at Stage 3, describing how the infected periodically display hive mind action. They will frequently and without warning gather around TVs and computer screens for periods of up to 40 minutes. Any gesticulation or exclamation is made by all members of the group and in perfect unison. There is no communication made between members of the group to coordinate this or anything else whatsoever. Following these events, the individuals will return to whatever they had been doing before without so much as a word inquiring as to what had just occurred. As for what they were watching, I could not tell. As far as I was able to see, the screens were either static or displaying what would be called a blue screen error. Following the event, televisions returned to erstwhile programming while computers rebooted without further error. The next 2 notes concern witnessing Stage 3 infected entering establishments in groups that could never have held that many people, yet suddenly being seen inside at a space that was perfect together, complete with an empty stage. The final note concerns the end of the investigation into the phenomenon through a report by an agent from November 14th, 1989. We
Oh my
started the night
goodness,
off
I'm
all
so
right.
bad at
Myself and the rest of
crochet.
Town 3 were doing routine rounds of the city, just looking around. We were all driving unmarked civilian cars. How they knew who we were is beyond me, honestly. But sure enough, they did. Each and every one of us. The civilians turned on us almost in unison all over the city. Happened so quickly I can't possibly imagine how it was organized, but it was. All of a sudden, the entire city of Bremerton, Washington turned on us and tried to tear us limb from limb, like some sort of invasion of the body snatchers sort of deal. It was a miracle we didn't lose anyone. They were ramming their cars into ours, trying to break the windows and drag us out. I had to authorize use of non-deadly force for the guys on foot. Thank God we got word to headquarters so they could hit the lights. For whatever reason, the blackout stopped them dead.
I don't even know what
Only
that's
one
slang
document
for.
remains related to this file. A transcript of a Stage 1
Tell me
broadcast
about it.
recording during the Washington
Rock
manifestation.
solid.
It begins with a daytime shot of SCP-3129-1, the center of the infection, standing
Afloat.
outside.
You're
He has
making
1
me
foot
much
elevated
more
onto a large rock
confused.
position to the right and says,
I'm so sorry.
"Hi,
Is your
I'm Norman
pee-pee
Mann,
hard?
and I'm
I
running for
don't
governor
get
of the
it.
state
I don't
of
know
Indiana.
what. I don't know.
My opponents would like you to believe that I'm not a
I'm
legitimate
sorry I asked
candidate
if
for
your
your
pee-pee
governor.
was hard.
I'd like to take a moment here to convince you otherwise. Together, I believe we can do so much more than individually. As your governor, with your help, I will be able to do anything. I believe in community first and foremost. There are people out there that want to destroy our community. A vote for me is a vote for a safer community. I will not be soft on the agents of fear that would seek to separate us. As your governor, I know it's going to be all eyes on me, but that's the way I like it. The more of you I have watching me, the better.
Gotcha.
I'll never back down from public scrutiny. In this day and age, there's so many voices out there trying to lead the voters astray. My voice is a voice you can trust. Listen to my voice." The scene transitions to SCP-3129-1 speaking directly to the camera. It is the same shot that began the recording but focused closer on Norman Mann. Only his top half is visible. He continues speaking. "With your help, I can be a force of change in this great state of Indiana. Without it, I can't so much as lift a pebble. Please lend me your support. Make the right choice. Together we can be part of something bigger, something greater. Together we can do anything. Together nothing will stop us. Together, not alone." The recording ends with a still shot of SCP-3129-1 smiling. At the bottom of the screen a note reads, paid for by the committee to elect Norman Mann. I suppose that leaves us with our final lesson of the night. Take the time to learn who the candidates running for your local office actually are, or you may end up ensnared by something not quite human. And that's it for tonight's excursion into the dark. I've most certainly enjoyed our adventure on secrets, cryptids, and paranormal, and I hope you have too. The internet is an amazing and sometimes terrifying place, but it's always interesting. If you don't yet have a home computer, I highly suggest looking into getting one and joining those of us online. Just make sure you don't join any horror writer forums if you do, alright? Thanks for joining me in the dark again this evening on NightMind. I'm delighted to have been your host, Nick Nocturne, and I'd like to thank all of you for viewing, as well as the viewers who support the show through the Patreon call-in donation service. Remember, you are the reason NightMind gets to air, and who knows, maybe someday we'll make it to a channel that's just a little bit bigger than Bridgewater County Public Access. Stay tuned to see the names of all the donors who support the show, as well as our viewing schedule. Thanks for watching once more, and remember, even if you don't see me, I'll be seeing you again.
Not tomorrow, the next day. Tomorrow we're doing
tight.
D&D stuff. JK, we're doing fascinating horror.
On the 25th of October, 1999, golfing icon and reigning US Open champion Payne Stewart boarded a private jet en route to his next big tournament in Texas. He would never reach his destination. Just a few minutes after takeoff, all communication from the plane on which he flew ceased, and the aircraft stopped maneuvering, instead adopting a straight, unwavering course that it would follow until, hours later, it finally ran out of fuel. By the late 1990s, Payne Stewart had become well known in the golfing community for his skill, eye-catching attire, and charisma. Having won his first US Open in 1991, Stewart went on to win his second in June of 1999. A few months later, he went on to help his team win the Ryder Cup for the United States of America. Following these considerable successes, Stewart was due to compete at the Tour Championship in October of 1999.
I have no idea what you're talking about,
Quinn.
I'm so sorry. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Ahead of the championship, Stewart made plans to fly from Orlando to Houston, with a stop-off along the way in Dallas. This stop-off would allow Stewart, as well as his friend and colleague Bruce Borland, a golf course designer, to fly together and discuss a course design project taking place at Stewart's alma mater.
Shit, it's the Alan
Stewart's
Resnick
agents,
thing.
Van Arden and Robert Fraley, also joined the two for the trip.
Fuck.
On the 25th of October, the group boarded a Learjet 35 in Orlando for the first leg of their flight. This private jet was manned by Michael Kling, a 42-year-old pilot who had flown both privately and in the Air Force, and co-pilot Stephanie Belgarig, who, although just 27 years old, had a significant number of flight hours to her name. The flight took off uneventfully at 9:19 a.m. and was scheduled to head north over Florida before turning west for Dallas. However, just 14 minutes after departing from Orlando, air traffic controllers lost contact with the jet, and the aircraft began veering slowly off course.
I would love so much if you would drop
Concerned by the lack of response from the crew, traffic controllers cleared a corridor of airspace around the jet and called on a nearby F-16 Air Force test pilot to approach and visually inspect the Learjet. This pilot was able to confirm that both engines were operating and that the aircraft itself looked fine, but noted that the windows were covered by either condensation or frost, with only a small patch in one window appearing to be clear. The state of the windows gave controllers their first insight into what might have happened on board the jet.
Thanks for coming in and
they were likely to be dealing with a loss of cabin pressure, something which would result in a massive drop in oxygen levels on board the plane.
That's very exciting.
Any passenger or crew member who had not managed to don an oxygen mask
club?
within
That's
just
so
a few
fun.
seconds
What are you guys
of the loss
reading?
of cabin pressure was
That's
very
so
likely
fun.
to be unconscious. If all of those on board had fallen unconscious, the Learjet 35 was now, effectively, a ghost plane. News organisations quickly began reporting on the rogue jet, with early reports only able to confirm that a professional golfer was on board. With many pros scheduled to leave Orlando for Texas that day, family members and friends began calling players, seeking to establish who was on board. Before long, it was confirmed that the Learjet was Payne Stewart's. As well as speculation about who was on board, there was also a great deal of uncertainty about where the plane would come down if, or when, it ran out of fuel. 4 F-16s, 2 from the Oklahoma Air National Guard and 2 from the North Dakota Air National Guard were deployed to fly alongside the jet. The aircraft appeared to be on autopilot.
It comes around every hour.
A straight course,
I can't do it. I can't make it happen.
The 4
and I don't
F-16s
have the link to it right now, and I don't have my keyboard, so I can't.
And provide regular
get the link for
reports.
it. It's entirely mod run
the
anyway.
The possibility that the plane might be shot
but
down
if you wait, like it probably
heavily populated area
it will be if you scroll back.
Media,
if you scroll chat
but authorization was not given for any of the escort planes
it should
to shoot
be there
down the
somewhere,
Learjet,
or
at least not within America. The Canadian
it will
Prime
come
Minister,
back
however,
around.
authorized Canadian military aircraft to target the Learjet if it should continue on its course and enter Canadian airspace.
Very soon, because
The plane, however, never reached Canada. In total, the Learjet flew unmanned for around 4 hours, heading northwest for 2,400 kilometers or 1,500 miles until it was
I'll
over
make sure
South
that we're
Dakota.
live on the
With
hour.
every minute that passed, its fuel reserves were depleting. At around 12:10 p.m. local time, these fuel reserves
It's super okay.
finally
I was
ran
taken
out.
aback. I'm not mad.
The Learjet's engines powered down, and the autopilot disengaged. The plane's flight path became suddenly erratic as, unpowered, it began to descend towards the ground. One of the F-16 pilots following the jet reported, "It's soon to impact the ground. He is in a descending spiral." Another added, "Looks like he's out of control, in a severe descent. Request an emergency descent to follow target." This F-16 pilot did indeed make an attempt to follow the Learjet in its rapid descent, but lost sight of the aircraft as it dropped towards the ground. The unpowered plane gathered momentum until it was falling at an incredible speed. At 12:13 p.m. local time, it crashed into a field near the town of Mena in South Dakota. The plane disintegrated on impact, with many pieces of wreckage burying themselves deep into the ground. As the entire fuel load on board had been used up before the crash,
you can post
there was no fire
in YouTube
or
chat.
explosion.
I fixed it. Also, you're a mod
To universal
now, so
relief, the Learjet did not hit any people on the ground, nor did it destroy any buildings. The field where it crashed was, in fact, 0.8 kilometers or 0.5 miles from any inhabited building. A crash in a populated area could have caused significant devastation, but the only casualties in this disaster
and I will
were
go ahead
those
and copy
on board
paste that
the jet itself.
to Twitch chat here.
All 6 people on board the plane lost their lives in the accident. As well as pro golfer Payne Stewart, also on board were his agents Van Arden and Robert Fraley, and his friend and colleague
Y'all
Bruce
should
Borland.
definitely go check
In the cockpit
that out.
were pilot and co-pilot Michael Kling and Stephanie Balgarik. It is likely that everyone on board lost consciousness rapidly and painlessly early into the flight, and died as a result of hypoxia long before the crash. Federal investigators were able to recover the cockpit voice recorder from the wreckage, but it covered only the final half hour of the flight. The recording included sounds of a low-pressure alarm, consistent with the jet losing cabin pressure. A year-long investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board concluded that whilst a loss of pressure had taken place, the exact cause of the failure could not be identified. The damage to the jet caused by the impact was just too comprehensive, and furthermore, the private jet had not had a flight data recorder on board. The loss of pressure might have been caused by a sudden rupture in the fuselage or by a gradual leak in one part of the plane. In any event, those on board would have had precious little time to act. Hypoxia causes confusion and impairs motor skills, meaning that the pilots and passengers would have had only seconds to determine what was wrong and secure their oxygen masks before they either lost consciousness or became too confused to do so. The crash and Payne Stewart's death had a profound impact on the golfing community. The Tour Championships, the tournament that Stewart had been scheduled to play that week, began with a lone bagpipe player playing at the first hole in tribute to Stewart. Later that week, the players interrupted the competition to attend Stewart's memorial service in Orlando. When they returned to play the final round, the competitors dressed in Stewart's trademark brightly coloured knickerbocker trousers in tribute to the much-loved player. The 6 victims were also memorialised at the crash site in South Dakota. With consent from the victims' families, the landowner, John Hoffman, an avid golf fan, built a 1-acre memorial around the site. A rock retrieved from the crash was inscribed with the victims' names alongside a biblical verse. This now sits in the centre of the memorial. A letter sent by the families of the victims to John Hoffman read, "It is unfortunate that we have been connected through tragedy, but we also realise that we could not have been connected to a better person. Your generosity of not only your land and time, but also your concern is a blessing to us. We are forever grateful." Hoffman's memorial has since become a place for friends, families, players and fans from all over the world to come together and remember those whose lives were cut short by the crash in such a sudden and unexpected way.
My husband has no idea which drawer my baking utensils go in. Oh, that shit is so fucking annoying. Okay, I'm gonna finish this shell and then we're gonna call it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start doing my spiel now. I would love it so much if you guys would follow the channel if you're not following and you had a good time here. I would love it if you would follow me on Twitter. It's just twitter.com/ZER0DOXY. I would love it if you would take a gander at my Patreon. I'm going to go ahead and stop this, hopefully before he starts talking. Hell yeah, I'm the best. Speaking of my patreon.com/ZER0DOXY if you have any interest. Thank you so much to my patrons, Big Wolf Paws, Quinn Kenobi, Laura Cody, and Katie Bailey. Y'all are the best. I appreciate it so fucking much. And also tomorrow we will be live. We will be doing the Dungeons and Dragons boys have asked me to guest on their show. So we're going to be doing that. I believe that we will be streaming it on my Twitch and on Dungeon Dad's YouTube. So not his Twitch and not my YouTube. So if you're a YouTube watcher, please go to youtube.com/DungeonDad. And that will take you to his channel. I would like you to subscribe and hit the bell. And you should watch all of his content anyway because he's a fucking genius. And then anybody that would prefer to watch my side of things, it will just be on my Twitch channel. So, you know how to get there. If you don't, it's twitch.tv/ZER0DOXY. Please join our Discord. I always post there and on Twitch before I go live. I'm going to go ahead and run a quick commercial here on Twitch while we find somebody to raid. In the meantime, I would love it if you would tell me your favorite barnyard animal so that I can make sure that you are nice and active in chat and we can have a big, girthy, thick-ass raid. Cherry Coffee 12, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate you. Welcome. All right, everybody. Have a good night, and I will see you tomorrow for some Dunjo shenanigans.